What Yi Fan witnessed sent his mind reeling. The thin white silk barely hiding the body's beauty, revealing seductive contours and provocative lace details. The room was filled with a dim atmosphere and alluring scents, and even a strong man like Yi Fan found himself surrounded by two beauties in sleepwear. Panicking as he begged them to stop, Yi Fan tried to back away to steady himself, but that only confronted him with even bolder, harder to avoid displays of flesh. Ling Long moved in close, her supple body sending Yi Fan's heart racing as she gently teased, corrected his form of address, and asserted a closer relationship. Wei Xu, though shy and blushing, spoke boldly, calling Yi Fan her husband and taking the lead. Under the continual pressure from the two, Yi Fan was flustered and wanted to explain, his face reddening as he stammered, insisting he wasn't as naive as before. A sudden flood of memories pulled Yi Fan back a few days to the funeral scene with gray skies, money and incense smoke filling the air. The Yi mansion shrouded in heavy mourning with white silk hung everywhere, evoking loss and death. In the main hall, the sullen officiant coldly read aloud the names of the fallen, listing Yi family members who died in various war zones, including Yexing Bang, reported killed at Haiyanvo at 34. The names Yixing Cheng and Yi Langxin were called, showing they perished respectively at the Wuxuan Wu battle zone. And in the south, while still in their prime, Yi Langjun also died at 26, among others who fell the same day, some bodies unrecoverable. Before the solemn altar, an old silver-haired man stood motionless in grief while clan members in mourning bowed their heads, creating a heavy, silent atmosphere. Ning Wu, a 3-star general, suppressed his pain to report to Elder Yi that the enemy's plan had been too covert and beyond their expectations. Yi Changfeng, as head of the family, remained composed, not blaming Ning Wu and frankly admitting that Yi family men went to battle prepared to face sacrifice. Though outwardly stern, he harbored a deep grudge, realizing human treachery was more fearsome than the battlefield, and that the Yi family was clearly being targeted. The solemnity of the hall suddenly broke, when a childish voice rang out and a pink stuffed pig rolled across the floor, bumping against Yi Changfeng's feet. A young man in shabby pajamas dashed after the toy and clumsily tumbled at the family head's feet. The hard fall caused a small crack to appear in the green jade pendant around the young man's neck. It was Yi Fan, the youngest of the Yi family, clutching the pig toy with a knave look, his clear eyes and foolish smile marking him as different from ordinary people. Truong Feng looked at his last grandson with a mix of pity and affection, gently helping Yi Fan up and telling him to stand. Yi Fan dazedly looked around while Truong Feng pulled him to the side and solemnly announced before everyone that Fan Hai would marry into the Xishuan family to preserve the Yi bloodline. Truong Feng affirmed that the Yi family would not collapse from this calamity, and that the clan's spirit remained unshaken. The bold declaration stunned everyone, who looked at Yi Fan clutching the pig toy and smiling foolishly, sparking mixed gossip about his status and brilliant past. People recalled that Yi Fan was once a martial way prodigy who reached Grandmaster early, but an accident 5 years ago cost him his mind and power. Otherwise he would have been the true family head. While others debated, Yi Fan remained completely carefree in his own world, unaware of the surrounding situation. Whispers about Yi Fan's identity and ties to the Xishuan family spread everywhere as two people entered from the hall with a less than friendly air. Xuan Zhengguo entered with Xuan Wufei arrogantly, openly despising Yi Fan and saying the Xishuan family cannot have Wufei tied for life to a fool. Ignoring the funeral atmosphere, Xuan Zhengguo plainly stated his purpose was to annul the engagement. Amid his grief, Truong Feng was so shocked by the cancellation that his qi became chaotic, and he bit his tongue in agitation. Chang Feng spat a mouthful of black, death-smelling blood, his frail body swayed nearly collapsing. Yi Fan hurriedly caught him and called out. With a dazed mind, Yi Fan couldn't grasp the cruelty of the situation and only cried, asking Wu Fei why she injured him and whether she no longer wanted to be his wife. Chang Feng clutched his chest to steady his breath, holding on to a last hope as he asked Wu Fei why she changed, reminding her she hadn't abandoned Yi Fan when he was harmed 5 years ago. Tormented inside, Xuan Wufei lowered her head to avoid Chang Feng's gaze and uttered a few awkward, hesitant words. Seizing the moment, Xuan Jinggu grew more triumphant and contemptuous, bluntly claiming the Yi family's decline made them unworthy and the prior agreement was due to former power. Anger flared in Chang Feng into murderous intent as he trembled and pointed at them, accusing them of flattering the strong and bullying the weak, revealing the Xishuan family's nature. Wu Fei bowed in shame, apologized and admitted she could not marry, leaving Yi Fan stunned and in pain, unable to understand why their once good relationship broke. As despair spread, a cold authoritative voice declared it would replace the engagement, and Xuan Wufei and Xuan Zingguo turned in surprise. Two extraordinary women appeared with majestic presence. Shaking the hall, people realized they were the betrothed of the Yi family's two elder brothers, Yi Fan's sisters-in-law. No one expected these famed figures to attend the funeral and mourn in person. Their status only heightened astonishment about the Yi family's daughters-in-law. The leading woman had a pure, lofty aura like ancient snow and introduced herself as Yu Linglong, a Yi family sister-in-law. The other, proud and sharp-eyed with composed movements, introduced herself as Su Yaixu, the seventh sister-in-law of the Yi family. The two took Yi Fan's arms and publicly declared on behalf of the seven sisters-in-law that they would marry him to preserve the family's bloodline. The declaration struck Xuan Zhengguo and Wu Fei like lightning, leaving them utterly shocked and unable to respond. The funeral erupted in chaos with countless whispers from amazement and envy to suspicion about the sisters-in-law's motives in marrying Yi Fan amid the family's decline. At the center of attention, Yi Fan awkwardly found himself sandwiched between the two women and felt his body suddenly grow unusually warm. The heirloom jade pendant on Yi Fan's chest flared brilliantly, its temperature rising as it became enveloped in golden spiritual energy. Cracks spread across the pendant as the spiritual energy sealed for years began to surge forth powerfully. The sealed soul within Yi Fan awakened. Power burst out violently, marking his breaking of the seal and entry into martial lord realm. Blocked memories rushed back, most vividly the horrific accident when a metal beast lunged at Yi Fan with lethal intent. 5 years ago, while striving to break through to martial lord realm, Yi Fan was assassinated and his soul fragmented. In desperation, the majority of Yi Fan's soul was sealed into the family heirloom pendant. In the ancient jade space where time differed, Yi Fan cultivated relentlessly, absorbing ancient secrets and refining his soul through countless opportunities. Lacking external influence, Yi Fan had to wait 5 years for the seal to weaken before he could return to his body. Yi Fan's consciousness fully merged with his body's memories. His once foolish eyes turned cold with hatred as suspicions arose about the same-day deaths of relatives and the 5-year-old assassination plot. Now with his soul whole and cultivation peaked at martial lord, Yi Fan felt nearly invincible, determined to hunt the killer and avenge his blood with the enemy's blood. Putting aside his murderous intent, Yi Fan realized his awkward plight as Linglong and Yaixu pressed him so he couldn't move while his body heated strangely. After a moment's shock, Xuan Zhengguo sneered mockingly, deriding Yi Fan that even recovered he wouldn't escape assassination and claiming those beside him would soon be widows. Yu Linglong stepped forward to shield Yi Fan, coldly declaring this was Yi family internal business and outsiders need not interfere. In an instant Yi Fan ran through countless possibilities, seeing the sisters-in-law openly side with Yi family and revealing his strength now would prompt the mastermind to slaughter the Yi family and them too. Yi Fan used his long-standing fool persona, deliberately hiding all sharp gazes and his true presence. He immediately pretended to be dazed, smiled harmlessly and hugged Linglong in a coquettish thanks, making her briefly flustered. Inwardly he knew to protect the family and sisters-in-law he must keep up the act longer. Linglong turned to call Chang Feng, who was still bewildered by the sudden joy. She reassured Chang Feng that she remained a Yi family daughter-in-law and would shoulder all future responsibilities. Moved, Chang Feng wept, and amid the piling family tragedy those words became his greatest comfort, prompting him to nod in agreement. With rising momentum, Linglong, as Yi Fan's wife, officially declared the engagement between Xuan Wu Fei and the Yi family null and void. Under Linglong's pressure, Wu Fei trembled in fear and could only weakly apologize. Hidden behind Linglong, Yi Fan silently memorized those who mocked the Yi family, resolving to abandon the past and restore the family's former glory and strength. Back from memory to reality, Yi Fan found himself in a fuzzier, more pressured situation than any battlefield, as Linglong and Yaixu closed in determined to continue the line, while he was flustered, burning all over and half laughing, half crying at this unexpected strength. The gentle touch of the two made Yi Fan shiver with arousal, and he hurriedly spoke up to stop them because he still had things to say. Yi Fan had no chance to escape as seductive sounds filled the room and even the bedside ornaments trembled, horrifying him as he realized the sisters-in-law were deadly serious. At the same time, in a quiet ancient place, a subordinate reported to Elder Truong that the Yi family funeral had concluded and Yi Chang Feng showed no suspicious signs. Hearing that the seven sisters-in-law publicly promised to marry Yi Fan, the middle-aged man kneeling before the Buddha coldly said anyone daring to approach the Yi family now should be dealt with as a warning. Elder Truong twirled his prayer beads and recalled the accident 5 years ago, ordering action to continue, while the subordinate quickly suggested using young Master Zhou who worshipped Su Yaixu to take out Yi Fan. Elder Truong showed contempt, treating Yi Fan like an insignificant ant, saying as long as he remained a fool his life or death was of no concern. Before the words finished, the prayer beads in Elder Truong's hand suddenly snapped, the Bodhi beads scattering across the cold stone floor. Elder Truong smiled wickedly even while kneeling before the Buddha, coldly ordering that if Yi Fan acted strangely he be killed without trial. The subordinate bowed to accept the order. After Zheng Go left, the hall returned to mourning. Chang Feng stood aged amid the ruins weighed by grief. He thanked Ling Long and the others but urged them to leave to avoid dragging them into the Yi family's future troubles. Ling Long kept her resolute demeanor, frankly assuring Chang Feng that marrying Yi Fan to preserve the Yi bloodline was a solemn decision. That sincerity deeply moved Chang Feng, painting him that the girls had to sacrifice so much. Ling Long hugged Yi Fan tightly and decisively declared the plan was set. The 7 sisters would stay with him in turn, 1 month each. The resolve to continue the line and avenge the Yi family left Yi Fan utterly embarrassed, surrounded by his sisters-in-law, blushing at their seriousness. The idea of being arranged like a tool agitated Yi Fan and made his breath quicken, which Ling Long perceptively noticed. Ling Long's reminder jolted Yi Fan alert. Yi Fan immediately played the fool, smiling and making childish gestures so Ling Long would think his earlier odd feelings were just suspicion. Ling Long suddenly gripped Yi Fan's face, earnestly admonishing him while he cried out weakly in pain. She solemnly affirmed that Yi Fan had once been the top genius, and believed he could rise again. She emphasized that the 7 of them marrying him had decided to follow him for life. Ling Long threatened yet shed tears, leaving Yi Fan stunned and deeply moved. Yi Fan realized his sisters-in-law had accepted all scorn to marry him, a tremendous act of courage and resolve. Finally Ling Long broke into tears, leaning on his shoulder and begging him to stay clear-headed, to bear the responsibility of protecting and avenging the Yi family. In an unobserved moment Yi Fan's gaze grew deep, his vow for revenge hardening. Weixu worried for Yi Fan, thinking Ling Long was too harsh while he hadn't fully recovered mentally. Ling Long reassured everyone, revealing she'd contacted the holy physician Sun Anju to treat Yi Fan, astonishing Chang Feng. Chang Feng was overjoyed, feeling reborn at the news that Yi Fan might be saved. Overwhelmed, Chang Feng suffered a heart relapse. Yi Fan worried and secretly calculated getting Sun Anju to extend his life. After thinking it over, Yi Fan again feigned excessive joy, but the fluctuation in his aura made Ling Long suspicious once more. Weixu gently soothed Yi Fan that they'd cure him and have children together, making him blush with embarrassment, unable to escape being teased. At the climax, Yixu was suddenly shoved from behind. Without time to react, Yixu fell fully into Yi Fan's arms, embarrassed as she scolded Ling Long for pushing too hard. Ling Long smiled enigmatically and decisively chose Yixu to stay with Yi Fan for the first month. Yixu shyly nestled against Yi Fan, who silently held her while Chang Feng wiped his tears, moved by the girl's sacrifice. Ling Long laughed warmly like family, then Chang Feng immediately called Yi Fan sternly by name. Chang Feng struck Yi Fan heavily in the chest as a wake-up call. Chang Feng sternly warned Yi Fan to treat the 7 girls well. His battlefield aura sent chills even down Yi Fan's spine. Yi Fan solemnly clasped his grandfather's hand, promising to love all 7 as his wives. Given the dangerous situation, Yi Fan still had to play the fool. Yixu took him away, knowing the sisters-in-law would suffer. Yixu mentioned Zhao Tianlong's banquet, a familiar name that caught Yi Fan's attention. Memories of the old car accident suddenly surged in Yi Fan's mind. At the brink of death, Yi Fan still tried to see clearly who caused the accident. The image of a man with a scarred face was etched deeply in Yi Fan's memory. At the funeral, Yi Fan recognized that man walking with Zhao Tianlong. Yi Fan suspected the Zhao family was behind the accident and decided to start his revenge with them. On the pavilion roof, thick black clouds made the air heavy and gloomy. Zheng Go angrily stormed into Wu Fei's room, scolding her for not being ready for the banquet, while she quietly turned away trembling. Wu Fei choked that she wasn't in the mood, a tear still on her lash. Zheng Go flew into anger, accusing Wu Fei of lingering on Yi Fan and insisting the Yi family was destroyed, that the marriage talk was just to save face. Wu Fei could no longer hold back, pushed Zheng Go outside and agreed to attend the banquet. While he turned to tell her to dress prettily, because an important person and young Master Lai personally invited them. When the door closed, Zheng Go sighed in displeasure, thinking Wu Fei immature but insisting it was for the Xuan family's benefit and a duty he must carry out. In the cold room, Wu Fei collapsed to the floor behind the door, realizing she was treated as a bargaining tool. In her weakest moment, Wu Fei silently called Yi Fan's name. In Yi Fan's room the mood was the opposite. He showed off his muscular, attractive body and teased Yixu why she hadn't undressed further. Yixu blushed, hesitantly looking at Yi Fan's firm form and surprised he remained strong despite not cultivating for so long. Yi Fan moved into tease, making Yixu embarrassed. She turned away and pretended to be sulky. To hide her embarrassment, Yixu threw his suit to Yi Fan and told him to put it on for the banquet. Yixu asked Yi Fan to call her his wife, and he naively and gladly agreed. She blushed as she looked at him, bashfully telling him he was a good man. Yixu sat in Yi Fan's lap, her soft body melting, arms instinctively wrapping his neck. He lunged and she fell back gently. She was savoring happy moments she hadn't enjoyed for a long time. The scent and intimacy made Yi Fan content, he realized. Spiritual ova. could be produced naturally to greatly boost cultivation, let alone now with 7 wives, so he had no worry about raising his realm further. As the atmosphere grew intimate, a rapid knock shattered everything. Yaeksu panicked and pushed Yifan aside to answer for the host, making him stagger in surprise. A servant reminded them the host and second master were waiting, causing Yaeksu to immediately recover her composure and turn cold at the serious situation. Yaeksu sarcastically asked if they intended to judge her, her manner leaving the servant embarrassed and speechless. Not making things harder for the servant, Yaeksu adjusted her clothes and stepped out to face them, showing readiness. Watching Yaeksu leave bravely, Yifan worried the Su family would make things difficult for her because of him and decided to follow to see what happened. When the whole Su family gathered, Yaeksu was immediately harshly questioned for her decision, accused of acting recklessly. Despite the criticism, Yaeksu remained calm and confident, entirely unfazed. Manhwa angrily blamed Yaeksu for wanting to marry Yifan, saying involvement with the destroyed Yi family would ruin the Su family. After everyone spoke, Yaeksu calmly replied that she had her own plan. Yifan eavesdropped outside, worried as he saw Yaeksu being scolded by the clan for choosing to marry him. The elders would not accept her explanation, and unanimously demanded Yaeksu be expelled from the family. Manhwa angrily turned to the patriarch, demanding he control his daughter. The patriarch immediately raised his hand to signal everyone to be silent. Su Honghai unexpectedly declared public support for Yaeksu's decision, shocking everyone. With her father backing her, Yaeksu was joyful and moved as she called to him. Honghai recalled how the Ye family once saved the Su family from ruin, insisting old debts could not be forgotten. The patriarch asserted his authority over Yaeksu, firmly protecting her and suppressing any objections. As the meeting settled, the banquet atmosphere began to rise. Bad news kept coming. Many partners announced they were cutting ties, worrying Manhwa and prompting blame. Pressure mounted with rumors that a powerful force wanted to blacklist the Su family, clearly using the Yi family as a warning. Manhwa and others advised the patriarch to be pragmatic and pivot cooperation to the Xia family to save themselves. Honghai found himself in a dilemma, unwilling to betray the Yi family yet unable to let the Su family fall into danger. Manhwa blamed Yaeksu, but she calmly proposed promoting cooperation with the Xia family to rescue the Su family. Under heavy pressure, Yaeksu remained firm, insisting the Su family must preserve both loyalty and anyone who disagreed could leave. With strong momentum, Yaeksu resolutely declared she would not stop anyone from leaving the clan. Seeing Yaeksu's firm determination, Yifan couldn't hide the swell of pride for his wife. Once Yaeksu had handled things, Yifan left intending to meet the Xia family first, hoping to help her secure the contract. Before he could act, Yifan was blocked by Tianlong's group, who arrogantly taunted and insulted him. Yifan pretended to be naive and asked back, inwardly realizing the man before him was Zhao Tianlong seeking him out. Immediately, Tianlong began a humiliating stunt by preparing a filthy drink. He even dropped a cigarette into the wine glass to make a disgusting beverage. His thugs laughed gleefully at the crude, humiliating act. With a mad vile look, Tianlong forced Yifan to drink the filthy wine. Jealous and determined to disgrace him publicly, they shouted and urged on, while Yifan pretended to obediently thank Tianlong to their satisfaction. Yifan kept playing the fool and even praised them, arousing no suspicion. His feigned idiocy made Tianlong's gang careless, until Yifan suddenly said the drink seemed to lack an ingredient. Yifan called to a passing cleaner, drawing everyone's attention. He intended to add another ingredient, causing the cleaner to panic and warn it was dirty water. Tianlong's men snickered and ordered the scene of Yifan's humiliation to be filmed for public mockery. Suddenly grabbed by the throat by Yifan, Tianlong was stunned and couldn't react. Yifan forced Tianlong to gulp down the filthy drink, leaving him unable to resist and forced to swallow it all. After drinking, Tianlong was overcome with revulsion and immediately vomited violently in pain. Reeking and twisted-faced, Tianlong screamed threats at Yifan, vowing not to let it go. Yifan still played knave, asking in surprise as if not understanding why the others were angry. He casually used Yaeksu as an excuse, saying he only returned the toast after being offered wine, inadvertently hitting Tianlong's jealousy. Though pretending to be foolish, Yifan was fully alert inside, confident in the experience and skill he'd built over 5 years to handle people like Tianlong. Despite the circumstances, Tianlong lost his temper and ordered his men to act to salvage his trampled pride. Facing the threat of a brawl, Yifan stayed calm and took a defensive stance. Then someone unexpectedly intervened and told them to stop. As Yifan was surrounded in the tense air, a person suddenly appeared with an overwhelming presence, loudly warning no one to touch him. Before the thugs could react, the newcomer grabbed their heads decisively. With that simple action, he showed the group his terrifying strength. At the sight of the newcomer, Tianlong immediately recognized him and panicked, believing he had long since left this place. The arrival was Wang Fugai, Yifan's sworn brother, who bluntly said he was here to protect his friend. Yi Fan was overjoyed to see Fu Gai again, recalling times he was treated as a fool yet always protected by his friend, vowing silently to repay him. Seeing Fu Gai's clear strength, one thug hurriedly advised Qianlong not to confront him, saying the man was a top fighter in the city. Realizing he was outmatched, Qianlong gave up, provoking Yi Fan and ordered a retreat. Though they withdrew, Qianlong nursed his resentment, believing Fu Gai couldn't protect Yi Fan forever and Yaixu would soon be his. After the others left, Fu Gai spoke up that he had heard everything. Fu Gai immediately teased Yi Fan, both jealous and admiring that he had 7 stunning wives. Fu Gai hugged Yi Fan so tightly he couldn't breathe, forcing Yi Fan to protest and demand he let go. Their report showed clearly as Fu Gai understood Yi Fan's thoughts with just a look, leaving him torn between laughter and tears. Fu Gai suddenly frowned as if detecting something amiss. With a keen nose, Fu Gai began inspecting Yi Fan by sniffing around him. Fu Gai bluntly suspected Yi Fan had recovered, putting Yi Fan instantly on alert and in panic. At that dangerous moment, another person appeared in time to bail Yi Fan out. The arrival was Yaixu, who worriedly asked about Yi Fan's condition after not seeing him following the meeting. Yi Fan immediately played knave upon seeing Yaixu, while Fu Gai solemnly greeted her and vowed to protect him. Seeing Fu Gai, Yaixu smiled brightly and felt reassured that he had returned. The important moment of the banquet arrived as the MC grandly introduced Xiaohao, CEO of the Xia Corporation, said to be seeking partners in the city. After warming the crowd, Xiao Lan quickly moved to invite Xiaohao to appear officially. Hearing Xiaohao would appear, Yaixu left to prepare partnership talks, entrusting Yi Fan to Fu Gai, who sternly warned of fierce competition from the Xiao family. While guests conversed below, Xiaohao stood on the podium and greeted all attendees. Humiliated by Yi Fan, Qianlong still nursed his pride and plotted that after dealing with the Xia family he would force Yaixu to submit. Xiao Lan directly asked whether Xiaohao intended to cooperate with the Xiao family. Xiaohao diplomatically answered vaguely, praising the Xiao family but leaving the door open to all major businesses in Yun City. Hearing that evasive reply, Qianlong immediately grew angry and suspicious of Xiaohao's intentions. Unlike Qianlong, Yaixu was glad Su family still had a chance, while Yi Fan remained wary of Xiaohao. At that moment, Xiaohao suddenly noticed Yi Fan and froze. Xiaohao was astonished and exclaimed, "Miracle Doctor." Xiaohao's words immediately drew every gaze in the hall to Yi Fan. Xiaohao hurried off the podium and quickly approached Yi Fan. To everyone's shock, Xiaohao openly expressed deep gratitude to Yi Fan, making the hall believe Su family now held a huge advantage. Xiaohao's attitude enraged Qianlong, who couldn't understand why Yi Fan was valued so highly. In his anger, Qianlong lost control, publicly insulting Yi Fan and denying his identity as a miracle doctor. Someone else lectured nonstop, ignoring Xiaohao's darkening face and stressing that the Yi family had declined and should be avoided. Xiaohao replied firmly and confidently, insisting he had not mistaken the man. Xiaohao warmly took Yi Fan's hand, confirming he was the benefactor from years ago and wondering why the miracle doctor now seemed foolish. Yi Fan stayed innocent, and Yaixu explained that the old accident had damaged his mind. The matching details made Xiaohao more convinced, confirming Yi Fan had been a genius and the accident happened after he saved Xiaohao. Without further negotiation, Xiaohao proactively proposed cooperating with Su family, leaving Yaixu stunned and incredulous. Qianlong panicked and interjected, warning that Su family was isolated and trying to sway Xiaohao to the Xiao family. Xiaohao bluntly stated his stance of repaying a debt, saying without Yi Fan the Xia family might not exist, so there was nothing to fear. Xiaohao publicly declared Su family the sole partner in Yun City and pledged full backing from the Xia family. Receiving timely help, Yaixu was overjoyed and repeatedly expressed her gratitude. Guests were astonished, believing the Yi family still had resources and that Yaixu had made the right choice trusting Yi Fan. Qianlong was furious and unwilling to accept that his plans were ruined by someone he despised. Xiaohao tactfully redirected the credit, implying the true person to thank was not himself. Yaixu happily caught the hint and turned to look at the innocent-looking Yi Fan. Ignoring all eyes, Yaixu hugged Yi Fan tightly and sincerely thanked him. Yi Fan was joyful from the bottom of his heart. Seeing Yaixu helped made him content. Maintaining his innocent demeanor, Yi Fan hugged Xiaohao and cheerfully thanked him like a child. Xiaohao responded gently, admitting the Xia family could only support up to a certain limit. Suddenly Yi Fan revealed a clear, alert tone, subtly indicating he would reward Xiaohao generously. Those words stunned Xiaohao, making him realize the miracle doctor might not be foolish after all. Sensing something off, Xiaohao lightly pushed him away, eyes suspicious as he called him the miracle doctor. Before Xiaohao could question him, Yi Fan immediately acted foolish again, hugging tighter and speaking loudly to distract. Yi Fan whispered discreetly that he had been sabotaged and had to play dumb, instructing Xiaohao to keep his identity secret and follow his lead when needed. Hearing this, Xiaohao quickly agreed, both amazed and excited by Yi Fan's scheme and seeing a bright future with the Yi family. Saihao resolutely pledged his full support for Yi Fan without hesitation. Qianlong, bewildered, stepped forward to question why the Xiao family was sidelined despite prior talks of cooperation. Yi Fan immediately pretended to be frightened, hiding behind Yaixu and accusing Qianlong, while Yaixu gently comforted him. Seeing Yi Fan's improvisation, Xiahou realized this was the first test he had set for him. Before Tianlong could react, he was suddenly struck in the face. Xiahou showed a cold face, questioned Tianlong and denied any prior agreement. Stung by the blow, Tianlong still argued, invoking the Zhou family to demand an explanation. Xiahou replied with scorn, saying Qianlong's intentions toward Yi Fan's wife alone warranted punishment. Then Xiahou coldly ordered Tianlong driven out, using drunken disorder as an excuse. Subordinates quickly dragged Tianlong outside despite his thrashing denials of being drunk. With no one paying attention to Tianlong, Xiahou invited Yi Fan and Yaixu to discuss cooperation privately. Two henchmen hurried over, anxiously supporting Qianlong and checking his condition. Wiping blood from his mouth, Tianlong furiously blamed Yi Fan for everything. Putting anger aside, Tianlong asked about the plan and was told everything was ready. Hearing the report, Tianlong smiled maliciously, determined to make Yi Fan suffer. Night fell. Under dim streetlights, a red car moved silently, signaling approaching trouble. While focusing on driving, Yaixu couldn't help sneaking glances at Yi Fan. The slanted streetlight made Yi Fan's face even more defined and attractive. That appearance, Yaixu felt shy and stirred, regretting she hadn't noticed his charm before. Noticing the gaze on him, Yi Fan turned to look. Yi Fan pretended to be foolish and teased, causing Yaixu to be caught and awkwardly deny it. He continued with suggestive teasing, making Yaixu more flustered and unable to control her thoughts. Vague thoughts of the future and having children arose in her mind, while Yi Fan responded innocently. Overlapping emotions and thoughts left Yaixu moved and embarrassed by the prospect ahead. Yi Fan touched her and quietly transmitted energy, worried when he saw her blush. A sudden warmth spread through her body, making Yaixu cry out from the heat. The sudden change distracted her, causing the car to swerve momentarily. Seeing this, Yi Fan panicked, and Yaixu began to suspect a familiar reaction whenever near him. Seeing his innocent look, Yaixu guessed this might be a special hidden ability of Yi Fan. She smiled gently, inwardly deciding Yi Fan was someone precious she would keep. Yi Fan hugged tightly and expressed sincere feelings, and Yaixu gently responded with faith in their future. As emotions rose, Yi Fan suddenly noticed something was wrong. He immediately looked for a reason to leave to handle matters, and Yaixu agreed. Before leaving, he joked, making Yaixu laugh in reply. From the tailing car, others sneered upon seeing Yi Fan get out. Qianlong and his men immediately grew murderous, ordering pursuit to strike in the woods. Aiming directly for Yi Fan, Qianlong's group didn't hesitate to penetrate deep into the wild forest, sweeping their lights through every dark corner. After searching for a long time without finding a trace, Qianlong grew impatient and muttered angrily that the other had vanished. While scanning the area, he suddenly stopped when he spotted a vague silhouette ahead. Thinking he'd found Yi Fan, he closed in and slapped the man's shoulder, loudly insisting he couldn't escape. But when the man turned, a stranger's face appeared and he asserted he was not Yi Fan. Taken aback, Qianlong hesitated briefly, then hurriedly asked if anyone had seen a similarly dressed man run into the woods. The man pointed ahead and calmly said he had seen that man run toward the back of the artificial rock. Following the tip, Qianlong immediately led the group that way, determined to kill Yi Fan and capture Su Yaixu to vent his anger. No one expected that the moment the group turned their backs, the newcomer revealed a smile with inscrutable intent. They continued searching the area, methodically and persistently checking each bush. After an unknown time with no result, Qianlong's anger flared, believing he'd been tricked. Just then a calm voice sounded from behind, denying any deception and saying there was a message from that man. Hearing this, Qianlong spun around and pressed the man for what the message said. The man coldly relayed the message of villains were chasing them and ordered that they all be eliminated. Those words stunned Tianlong for a moment, and he confusedly asked what the man really meant. Without further reply, the man immediately acted, quickly striking down Tianlong's henchmen with precise blows. Watching his subordinates fall one by one, Tianlong panicked and demanded the man's true identity. The man remained unruffled, tauntingly asking how Qianlong could fail to recognize him. As he spoke, the man removed his disguise, revealing a familiar face in the flickering light. Realizing the truth, Tianlong stammered in terror, unable to believe the man before him was Yi Fan in disguise. Before he could steady himself, Tianlong froze as he noticed a crucial discrepancy. With a trembling hand pointing opposite, he bitterly realized the man had only pretended to be foolish all along. Upon grasping the truth, all of Qianlong's faith shattered. He panicked, realizing Yi Fan had grown far stronger, and he had no way out. Yi Fan gave a cold smile, implying Qianlong's crimes were far greater than those mentioned. Without beating around the bush, Yi Fan pointed out the man behind Tianlong, claiming he had seen him in the car accident 5 years ago. Exposed, that man immediately collapsed and begged, confessing he acted under others' orders and pleaded for his life. Despite the pleas, Yifan struck to end him, unable to erase years of hatred. In an instant, the man was completely consumed by flames, causing Qianlong to scream and collapse. Faced with the horrific sight, Qianlong broke down, panicked and unable to comprehend what power could turn a man to ash. Yifan displayed his might, declaring his martial way firepower could incinerate foes and daring Qianlong to test it. He also felt the strong flame force within him, the very source used to cast his technique. Saying no more, Yifan stepped forward to question the cause from 5 years ago, prompting Qianlong to tremblingly admit he was forced by a city faction and beg for mercy. At the mention of the Liu family in the city, Yifan's eyes trembled, clearly struck by something important. Old memories surged, stoking Yifan's fury as he recalled elder Liu, once loyal to his grandfather yet who betrayed and secretly harmed him. Noting Yifan's ominous silence, Qianlong hurriedly explained that the Liu family only followed orders from a powerful force in the capital. No sooner had he finished than Yifan grabbed Qianlong by the throat, coldly demanding the identity of the mastermind in the capital. Gasping for air, Qianlong trembled and confessed he didn't know the person's true identity, only that Yun City's clans all served one man and received orders through the Liu family. Terrified, Qianlong begged for his life, promising to keep everything secret if spared. That vow only drew a cold laugh from Yifan, who doubted his ability to keep such a secret. In desperation, Qianlong raised his hand to swear, hoping to prove his words true. Before he could finish the oath, a terrible force struck, obliterating Qianlong. After Qianlong vanished, Yifan coldly concluded he did not believe the promise. Leaving the scene, Yifan carried a ruthless resolve to systematically eliminate each implicated clan. After walking a short distance, Yifan noticed Yixi anxiously running toward him, urgently calling his name. Seeing her now, Yifan noticed Yixu pale with worry, repeatedly asking where he had been. A warm feeling washed over him and he smiled, since Yixu, who was normally afraid of mice, had risked danger just to find him. A few seconds later, Yifan turned with a goofy look, called Yixu his wife, and said he was finished and out here. Yixu hurried over, worriedly asking why he was gone so long and if he was okay. Yifan teased her, prompting Yixu to feign panic. The rat is huge. The joke worked. Yixu leapt and grabbed Yifan's neck, frantically asking where he'd been. After tricking her, Yifan kept teasing, making her blush and run off while he smiled, calling his wife adorable. Realizing she'd been teased, Yixu sulked and scolded Yifan for deliberately frightening her. Though angry, Yixu let Yifan lift her without resistance. He joked, "So many rats. I will carry my wife to the car." They stayed embraced like that and headed back to the car together. Nearby, 2 of the Zhao house's subordinates watched from a white car, shocked that Yifan had escaped while their young master was nowhere to be seen. Sensing something wrong, they rushed into search, calling for their young master repeatedly. Soon in the mansion a furious voice rang out, "How did the young master disappear?" The speaker was Zhou Dichang, Qianlong's father, enraged and ordering the search to continue because the 2 people were alive yet missing. A hunched orange-haired guard reported that over 100 men had searched the park and even the river but found no sign of the young master. The shaved head guard guessed the mysterious expert was too powerful. Defeating everyone in under 2 minutes, only the young master and Scar Knife remained, and were likely captured. Dicheng was puzzled, unsure whether the expert targeted the Zhao or the Depp family, while Qianlong was his only son. Still, he ordered reinforcements and to keep searching for the young master. Report any leads immediately. The 2 guards answered in unison. Understood. After the subordinates left, Dicheng paced the corridor. Angerless. Scar Knife was also missing, and he suspected the 5-year-old incident was involved, grumbling that Yifan should have been eliminated back then. Moments later he froze, eyes wide as he realized Yifan was sitting right in his office. Dicheng, not yet recognizing Yifan, aggressively pointed and barked, "Who are you?" Yifan answered calmly, reminding him that he was the one they had tried to kill 5 years ago. At that, Dicheng panicked as if seeing a ghost, stammering, "Yifan, are you pretending?" Dicheng's face went pale as he panicked, shouting someone. Before he could finish, a pen whizzed through the air toward him. The pen struck hard, pinning his hand to the wall and splattering syrup everywhere. Not stopping there, a crumpled roll of paper was shoved into Dicheng's gaping mouth. Completely restrained, Dicheng could only widen his eyes and watch Yifan approach leisurely and say, "I can make this less painful for you." Yifan forcefully pulled the paper roll from Dicheng's mouth. Once he could speak, Dicheng looked at Yifan in alarm and asked about Tianlong Hu. Yifan sneered, saying keeping someone who once tried to kill him alive just for New Year was obvious. The reply made Dicheng grit his teeth, his body trembling as he pleaded that they were only following orders. Yifan snapped, ignoring the excuses. Cut the nonsense. Besides the Wang and Li families, who else relies on the Liu family in Yun City? Under Yifan's pressure, Dicheng obediently revealed only the Wang and Li families, and that the Liu family had planted experts to watch the Dipe family, but their hideout was unknown. Yifan pressed about who backed the Liu family. Frightened, Dicheng said he'd only met a masked representative from the capital called Zhou Xiao, and knew nothing more. Recalling that person, Dicheng warned the force was powerful enough to influence Yun City's governor, and they couldn't win. Ignoring the warning, Yifan tightened his grip on Dicheng's throat, terrifying him, while saying there was one more clue and asking not to kill him. Hearing this, Yifan frowned, eyes cold and lethal, and issued a swift order, holding Yifan's hand. Dicheng trembled and admitted they struck the Dipe family, because the clan was too powerful and seemed to be searching for something. Yifan's power surged, veins bulging on Dicheng's neck. He cowered and dared not reveal what it was. At that his eyes rolled back, foam at his mouth, and he stammered, I really don't know anything. At that one line, Yifan glared and decided there was nothing more to hear. Immediately, Dicheng's body dissolved, casting brilliant streaks of light into the air. The next morning the news reached Changfeng. Overnight the Zhao father and son vanished. The second master had a car accident. The third fell from a building after confirmation. Yun City was shocked and abuzz. The shocking tale made him stroke his beard in curiosity. Clearly a master had targeted the Zhao family, but who it was and how flawlessly it was done remained unknown. Speaking with Changfeng was Leng Feng, captain of the Dipe family's guards. They'd previously investigated the young master's accident linked to the Zhao family, but the trail was now cut off. At mention of Yifan, his face filled with killing intent. Despite the lost leads, he was determined to investigate. Sensing the attack on the Dipe family was not simple, the scene takes place in the evening at the Su family's lavish mansion. Yifan lay on the bed with his hands behind his head, musing that news of the Zhao family's annihilation had surely spread and leaked out. His thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice, and he quickly looked toward the door when he heard his name called. He saw Aixu looking charming yet shy. She hesitated and asked if she was pretty. Aixu blushed, resolving to overcome her shyness and take the initiative because Yifan was naive and needed her guidance. Yifan sincerely praised Yaxu as the most beautiful, making her happy and teasing him back for the sweet words. Yaxu suddenly grew serious, looked at him determinedly, and told him to come closer. Though he understood her meaning, Yifan pretended innocence, asking while inwardly finding Yaxu's embarrassed manner adorable. Yaxu blushed but mustered the courage to say she wanted to be with him and bear his children in the future. Yifan deliberately teased by pretending to misunderstand, while Yaxu pouted and denied it, explaining she didn't mean that kind of sleeping. He moved closer playfully and asked again, leaving Yaxu flustered and at a loss for words. Embarrassed, Yaxu pushed him away and scolded him affectionately for teasing too much. Then Yaxu regained her courage and took the initiative, deciding to make the first move. Meanwhile Yifan's hand couldn't stay still as it touched her body. He continued teasing, making Yaxu tremble and awkwardly say she needed a little more time. Yifan pouted at the unfairness, causing Yaxu to blush and hurriedly tell him to stop talking. Still Yaxu gently pinched his cheek as an affectionate gesture. Yaxu tenderly instructed him and gave a light kiss, telling him to follow her lead. Yifan's hand on Yaxu's waist suddenly tightened, showing his rising emotion. Afterward, the two grew close and intimate in a very tender atmosphere. Unusual sounds mixed with her soft sobs along with a burning, uncomfortable sensation. From the feeling conveyed through his palm, he realized the inner force in his body was shifting and his martial way energy was about to rise. Under Yifan's lead their bond deepened, his strength reached the peak of martial lord, and was on the verge of a new realm. One could clearly sense Kai streams circulating, spinning and converging into a radiant golden energy. He leaned close and whispered to Yaxu, guessing her cultivation was about to change too. The noises carried outside to the two guards, one of whom couldn't help remarking that although the young master was knave, his vigor was undiminished. The two guards chatted continuously, saying Miss Su was fortunate, and if the young master recovered soon they were truly a destined pair. After things settled, Yifan looked at Yaxu gently and sincerely thanked her for not leaving the Yi family and for helping him increase his spirit egg and strength. Moved, he kissed her forehead lightly and vowed that from now on Yaxu was his woman, and he would protect her from harm. At the same time, though late, the two families' mansion was still brightly lit. It turned out Su Dong was panic, strictly reporting the Zhao family news to his father, but was sternly cut off by Xjian before he finished. Su Jane glanced around and sternly admonished that this matter could not be discussed casually. Although apologetic, Su Dong remained worried, but Su Jane stressed that the Yi family were benefactors, and Yifan's recovery should only be celebrated. Those words did not reassure Su Dong, and instead he feared that if Yifan learned the old truth, their long-held assets would be in danger. Finally, Xu Jane slapped him hard to subdue him and ordered Su Dong to shut up. Holding a packet of documents, he muttered, admonishing Su Dong for speaking without thought. Turned out Su Jane had investigated and confirmed it wasn't Yifan, but old enmity between Zodi Chang and a grandmaster. Rubbing his swollen cheek, Su Dong suspiciously asked who that grandmaster was. Su Jian said he had also heard rumors that the grandmaster's name was Fan Yi. On hearing the name, Su Dong was even more confused since he'd never heard it, while Su Jian said names didn't matter, ability was enough. As Su Jian's intent became clear, Su Dong's expression turned grave and suspicion about his father's thinking arose. Moments later, Xu Jian softened, patted Su Dong's shoulder, and urged him to find Mr. Pham, because the two family urgently needed his help. Hearing this, Su Dong rejoiced inwardly and assumed his father planned to hire a master to deal with Yifan and the Yi family, thus seizing the Yi family fortune. At the thought, Su Dong excitedly left to act, while Su Jian stayed behind, knowing about Yifan. Su Jian's eyes were filled with hatred and scheming, signaling that Yifan's peaceful days were ending. In their private room, Yifan and Yixu slept entwined in gentle slumber. Suddenly, several knocks at the door from outside awakened them. Yixu sat up, rubbed her eyes and asked what was happening. The servant reported someone had come to see young Master Ye. Before she could answer, she was pulled into an embrace, making her give a small cry of surprise. Yifan held Yixu tightly like a spoilt child wanting to stay in bed, and she bashfully told him to stop joking, thinking of the person waiting outside. Yixu asked who had come. The servant replied it was Xuan Wufei, a name that stunned Yixu. Yixu turned and pinched Yifan's cheek, making him cry out in pain and pout as she said his ex-fiancé had arrived. Yifan teased her, saying she was jealous, causing Yixu to turn away in embarrassment and deny it. Yifan suggested Yixu go meet Xuan Wufei. Yixu told herself she was going to protect him, not out of jealousy. Soon Yifan and Yixu dressed neatly, linked arms and stepped outside. At the door, Wufei waited, and when she saw them, she couldn't help thinking they made a perfect match. Yixu coldly asked Xuan Wufei why she came after breaking the engagement, whether it was to mock Yifan. Xuan Wufei flusteredly explained she came to apologize to Yifan and that yesterday's events weren't voluntary but forced by second uncle. Yifan judged that given Wufei's weak character, being coerced was plausible. Suddenly, a man stepped out of the car and called Wufei's name. It was Li Yang, the Li family's eldest young master, dressed elegantly and holding a bouquet, gently calling Wufei. Li Yang took Wufei's hand, reminding her of their movie date. She panicked and tried to pull away, surprised by his arrival. Wufei angrily demanded who told him she was here, suspecting second uncle. Behind them, Yifan turned coldly to Li Yang, angry that Wufei had chosen the Li family and thus sided with his enemy. Noticing Yifan's unusual expression, Yixu gently lifted her head to observe and probe. At that moment, Yixu suddenly thought that seeing his ex-fiancé with another man must have deeply hurt Yifan. Without hesitation, Yixu stepped forward to Yifan's surprise and loudly scolded Xuan Wufei, accusing her of pretending to apologize but actually showing off her romance. Yixu pointed to herself and firmly declared she was Yifan's woman, demanding Xuan Wufei never bother her husband again. Having said that, Yixu reached up and cupped Yifan's face and kissed him, making him blush. Seeing this, Wufei was stunned with a pain so deep she froze, realizing their relationship had gone far beyond what she had imagined. After asserting her place, Yixu turned back satisfied, smiled and coldly told Wufei to leave if she had any sense. Yifan happily hugged Yixu and told Wufei with a smile that she wouldn't be his wife because he already had one. He even added in a mock, serious tone that he had as many as 7 women more beautiful than Wufei. At those words, Wufei's eyes filled with tears, her body wavered, and she choked out that as long as Yifan was happy, that was enough. Wufei's beautiful face was now wet with tears as she forced out a blessing for Yifan. Seeing Wufei turn to leave, Yan Yang hurriedly called after her name. Yan Yang ran up and grabbed Wufei's hand, but she shook him off and coldly told him to get lost. Unwilling to give up, Yan Yang continued to pursue her and called after Wufei. Yifan watched them leave and thought silently that some mistakes, once made, cannot be undone. At the Liu family estate in Ho City, an angry voice suddenly shouted that Xiahou had gone mad. The speaker was Li Ran, who angrily slammed the table because Xiahou chose to side with the Yi family and cooperate with Su Corporation now. An attendant respectfully reported that Xiahou did so to repay a life-saving favor. Liu Ran did not care about the reason. His mind brimmed with cruel schemes, and he resolved to destroy the Su family as a warning. Then Liu Ran stood, solemnly ordered that the Zhao family be wiped out and that the Wang family and Le Clan join to eliminate Su Corporation, shattering Su Yixu, while the staff bowed in obedience. With the plan set, he smugly thought, haha, let's see who still dares side with the Yi family this time. Just as they reached the gate, Fu Gai cheerfully assured Yixu that she could relax because he would take good care of Yifan. Saying that, Fu Gai pulled Yifan outside. Yifan playfully called to Yaixiu, and she smiled gently, telling him to go have fun and she'd pick him up after work. Yifan waved innocently and reminded Yaixiu to come get him, while Fu Gai walked ahead, smiling helplessly in response. After that, Yifan and Fu Gai left the gate together. Once they were some distance away, Fu Gai suddenly leaned in excitedly and said Yaixiu was no longer there, and Yifan didn't need to pretend anymore. Fu Gai laughed, nudged Yifan's elbow and praised that he'd noticed from the start Yifan was different. Now the fake weakness at the party to fool opponents was brilliant. Fu Gai lowered his voice to ask about the Zhao family's destruction and Yifan's cultivation, making Yifan smile inwardly at how perceptive Fu Gai was. Yifan began to think and realized the Yi family had too many enemies and he couldn't drag Fu Gai into danger. Yifan decided to keep playing dumb to hide the truth, speaking novelly while Fu Gai could only helplessly say he didn't mean that. Fu Gai sighed, accepted not to probe further, and took it that Yifan was no longer as foolish as before. Excited, Fu Gai suggested taking Yifan to places they used to frequent, which made Yifan a little embarrassed. Yifan recalled the disreputable spots they'd gone to before and nearly refused, saying he now had a wife so couldn't go to those places. Instead, Fu Gai only smiled mysteriously and said they'd see once they went. They then headed toward a nearby high-rise building together, standing at the entrance. Fu Gai confidently asked Yifan if he remembered this place, where he used to take him to buy things. After looking around, Yifan recognized it as the familiar black market. The 3 underground levels beneath it were Yun City's largest black market, trading all kinds of rare treasures. If you had money, you could buy anything. On the surface, Yifan acted delighted like a child going shopping, but inwardly he was calculating the chance to find something valuable. Fu Gai watched Yifan walk in, smiling to see he still remembered the way, a sign of recovery. Each with his own thoughts, Yifan quietly praised Fu Gai for being rough outside but subtle inside, seeming to grasp his intention. Next, Yifan and Fu Gai moved deeper into the stalls of the black market. Fu Gai followed excitedly, boldly saying he'd pay for whatever Yifan liked. While Yifan inspected the stalls and found nothing worth buying, Yifan recalled an old method, decided to use the secret technique he'd practiced for 5 years, and focused all his spirit into his eyes. Immediately his gaze scanned the items. Those with special functions glowed purple, making him think the strange demonic eye could see essence perfect for finding cheap treasures. Suddenly his eyes stopped on a gem emitting a brilliant golden light, standing out from the rest. Yifan recognized it as a yuanqi pill, a treasure that can break through to Grandmaster. Even 1 billion on the open market might not buy one. Fu Gai noticed a bright purple stone and suggested buying it for Yaixiu, while Yifan glanced and thought the yuanqi pill would truly suit Fu Gai, who years ago was close to breaking Grandmaster. Yifan suddenly picked up the yuanqi pill, smiling and saying bringing the stone home for the cat to play with would be fun. Seeing Yifan seemed gullible, the seller pointed to a pile and said if he bought another stone they'd throw this one in free. The seller smirked, thinking he'd make a sale, since those stones were really just table leg weights, perfect to fool the unknowing. Hearing that, Yifan pretended to believe it and decided to buy, asking to wrap both stones and telling Fu Gai to pay. Fu Gai worriedly advised Yifan to buy only the one he held, saying the other would make Yaixiu angry, and began to suspect whether his brother had really stopped being foolish. Yifan playfully scolded that Fu Gai had promised, leaving Fu Gai to force a smile and take out money to pay. Yifan happily handed Fu Gai the stone he picked, and Fu Gai begrudgingly took it. At that moment, some shoppers passing by whispered that the Yi family's enemy had hired a master about to reach martial lord to eliminate the Yi family. The sudden gossip reached Yifan's ears, leaving him shocked and stunned. The market bustled with trade, and people came and went without stop. Observing the 2 men talking ahead, Yifan vaguely grasped their intent and hadn't expected them to plan to act so swiftly. However, now awakened, he vowed not to let the mastermind behind it succeed. Just then Fu Gai absent-mindedly interrupted Yifan's thoughts and asked if something was wrong. Immediately Yifan shifted from silence to naivety, urging Fu Gai to try the stone in his hand, leaving Fu Gai baffled by the rough rock. Fu Gai, sweating and terrified, explained it's just a rock, not candy, inedible, but Yifan novelly asked why it couldn't be eaten. Before Fu Gai could react, Yifan lunged and forced the stone into his mouth. Despite Fu Gai resisting and pleading, it was completely useless. The moment he bit down, the stone immediately shattered into many pieces. When a brilliant golden light burst forth, Fu Gai was terrified. He hadn't expected the stone to actually break and contain a yuan kuai pill inside. This pill could raise the chance of breaking through to Grandmaster by 70% and to Martial Lord by 50%, leaving Fu Gai puzzled why such a treasure was hidden in a rock. Fu Gai looked at Yifan with deep gratitude, but Yifan was on the phone asking who was calling. On the other end was Xiaohao's voice, offering to introduce someone important to Yifan. This made him take the call seriously and quickly agree in a cheerful tone. Half an hour later everyone gathered at the royal hotel, and Xiahou began his introductions to Yifan. Watching Yifan's reactions, Xiahou pointed to the two beside him and said they were members of the Xia family. Then Xiahou introduced Li Hu, who handled shady affairs, and Li Hu immediately pledged loyalty to Yifan. Xiahou went on to introduce Sun Quan, governor of Yun City, versed in official matters, and Sun Qian politely promised to assist Yifan when needed. Though both showed respect, Yifan laughed and changed the subject to break the mood, making Xiahou smile along. Seeing this, Sun Qian silently reassessed Yifan and decided to take the Yi family more seriously despite Yifan's feigned foolishness. To prevent Yifan from blabbing, Fu Gai quickly interrupted and on his behalf acknowledged Xiahou's favor, pleasing Xiahou, who raised his glass in praise. Suddenly someone panicked and reported that subordinates had sent word the Wu Old Lang's men had mobilized en masse and seemed to be hunting Su Yaixu. The sudden bad news ignited a fierce fury in Yifan. Xiahou and Fu Gai were stunned by Yifan's reaction, unable to hide their surprise. Yifan's pupils contracted, murderous intent flooding his mind as he roared with rage that someone dared touch his woman. Seeing this, Fu Gai grew suspicious because Yifan's aura was too strong for someone pretending not to have recovered. Yet he hesitated and called out to his elder brother. As if a switch had been flipped, Yifan immediately reverted to his foolish act, loudly declaring he wanted to rescue Yaixu, leaving Fu Gai behind helplessly calling after him. Having grasped the situation, Xiahou made a prompt decision, ordering everyone to set out and protect Su Yaixu at all costs. Hearing the order, all answered in unison. On the main road several black cars tailgated closely, fiercely pursuing the white car. Realizing the danger, the two urgently reported that the pursuers were too close and escape seemed impossible. In the back, Yaixu tended her wounds while calmly instructing them to keep driving. Despite the peril, Yaixu held firm she'd rather face danger than fall into the hands of those villains and be humiliated. No sooner had she finished speaking than the car was attacked by the group behind them. The driver gripped the wheel, cursing in anger as the pursuers rammed straight into them. The car swerved wildly, then suddenly turned sharply into a narrow alley. Tires screeched, sparks flew, and someone shouted a panicked warning to be careful. In the cramped space anxious shouts rose. They discovered it was a dead end and suggested Yaixu take another route while they stayed to cover her. At the suggestion, Yaixu immediately objected out of concern for their safety. But the two insisted that the Su family once did them a favor, and now was the time to repay it. Though in a hurry to leave, Yaixu still warned them to be careful and promised to call for help, while two stayed to cover and one escorted her away. Suddenly a dry gunshot rang out, cutting through all the chaotic noise. Yaixu clutched the sleeve at her shoulder, eyes wide from fear as the enemy suddenly lunged forward. Behind her, Datu struggled to stand after being shot, anxiously shouting for them to release Yaixu. Just as tensions were about to explode, a cold shout unexpectedly demanded what they were doing. The underworld force in Yun City appeared as Old Lang Wu led his men forward, sneering and ordering them to charge. No sooner had he finished than his henchmen surged up and quickly subdued Yaixu's guards to the ground. Old Lang Wu approached Yaixu with a calculating smile, threatening and coaxing her not to resist. Seeing things slipping out of control, Zhu Hong reminded him their orders were to kill Yaixu. But Old Lang sneered that humiliating her would also be a great deed. Tough as she was, Yaixu pressed a knife to her neck and declared she'd rather die than let them touch her. Seeing her fierce reaction, Zhu Hong grew more eager, cursing as he lunged to subdue her. As the attacker closed in, Yaixu swung her weapon and wounded him in return. Zhu Hong clutched his wound, screaming in pain and shock that Yaixu knew martial arts. Even Yaixu was startled, not understanding why her speed and strength had suddenly surged. At that moment Yaixu recalled intimate memories and felt a warm power in her body after being close to Yifan, making her suspect that both she and he had improved, and perhaps he was pretending to be foolish. After a moment to steady herself, Yaixu quickly regained composure and gripped her weapon tightly. Seeing his men injured, Old Lang lost patience and ordered everyone to finish this quickly. In a panic, Yaixu instinctively swung her weapon and shouted for them to stay back. But lacking combat and defense experience, she was soon knocked back in the chaos. Before her, the attackers all raised their weapons, cold eyes fixed on her. With no way out and unable to fight back, Yaixu silently shed tears and whispered farewell to Yifan. At that moment one of Old Lang's men couldn't hold back and swung a cold blade down. In that life or death instant, a familiar voice suddenly reassured Yaixu that he had come to save her. From afar a motorcycle roared in at high speed, directly knocking over Old Lang's men and throwing the scene into chaos. Terrified, Yaixu squeezed her eyes shut as a dangerous blade slid narrowly past her. When she opened her eyes again, Yaixu saw Yifan standing between her and danger without hesitation. After handling the threat, Yifan hurriedly hugged Yaixu tightly, breathless and worried as she stood stunned at his appearance. Yixu trembled as she touched the familiar face, tears streaming, joyful that Yifan had awakened and the Yi family was saved. Yifan said nothing, silent with inner guilt and remorse because he knew he couldn't tell her the truth yet. For that reason, Yifan kept up his act of foolishness and pretended not to understand what Yixu said. Witnessing that, Old Lang exploded in anger and ordered his men to immediately kill the two. The moment the others moved, Yifan quickly noticed, turned to check behind him, and snatched up a weapon falling on the ground. He gripped the weapon and charged forward with fierce momentum, shouting at them for daring to bully his wife. Yifan lunged at the attackers and swung the weapon in a powerful assault. Old Lang tried to block, but his weapon couldn't withstand the force, and quickly shattered. Not stopping, Yifan gained full dominance and immediately seized Old Lang by the throat. With overwhelming strength, Yifan lifted Old Lang and tossed him around like an insect. Finally, Yifan slammed him hard to the ground to vent his anger for abusing his wife. The sight terrified Old Lang's remaining men into frozen silence. Even Yixu was stunned, her voice trembling as she called Yifan's name. Once things calmed, Yifan's subordinate rushed over, Fu Gai panting as he scolded him for acting too quickly. Looking at the motionless men on the ground, he stared in horror, stammering that he couldn't understand what had just happened. Glancing at Yifan, he briefly suspected their boss's identity might be exposed to his sister-in-law, which would be bad. Su Yixu blamed herself, thinking that because of her, Yifan, though memoryless, had his savage instincts triggered to protect her. Hearing that, Fu Gai secretly admired their brother's handling, considering it very skillful and clever. Noticing Fu Gai's reaction, Yifan frowned in annoyance, reproaching him inwardly for standing by instead of helping with matters he couldn't publicly address. Understanding Yifan's meaning, Fu Gai immediately acted, grabbing one of the men to interrogate their mastermind. This finally brought a satisfied smile to Yifan's face. Under pressure, the captured man panicked and confessed that young Master Wang of the Wang family had ordered Old Lang Wu to hunt Su Yixu as a warning, pleading for his life as a lowly henchman. Hearing the familiar name, Yifan ground his teeth in anger, realizing the Wang family were subordinates of the Liu family in the city. Once he learned who was behind it, Yifan grew interested and suspected the Liu family acted to prevent a second Xia family rising and to corner the Yi family. Immediately, Yifan's expression and bearing turned resolute, his eyes showing determination that eliminating the Xiao family alone wouldn't solve the problem. No sooner had Yifan thought this than Yixu, exhausted, collapsed into his arms, prompting him to shout in alarm and ask if she was all right. Despite her severe injuries, Yixu showed her kindness by worrying about the subordinates and begging them to save Captain Xiao. Yifan quickly composed himself and ordered Fu Gai to take everyone to the hospital immediately, which Fu Gai loudly acknowledged. Right away, they hurriedly left to treat the wounded on the lonely road. It was clear the fight before Yifan arrived had been brutal, evidenced by someone so badly hurt they lay bandaged on a hospital bed. Zada too lived up to his title as captain of the guards, waking and immediately asking anxiously about Su Yixu's safety. Yifan gently reassured him that Yixu was fine, just frightened, making Datu breathe a sigh of relief and smile with comfort. After relaxing, Dota suddenly grew serious as he noticed something odd. The moment he spotted the difference, Datu panicked and blurted out whether Yifan was still an idiot. At that moment Yifan didn't hide it, seriously admitting he'd recovered and instructing Datu to keep it secret. To show his loyalty, Datu rose despite his injuries and vowed to keep the secret, causing Yifan to chuckle and tell him not to be so formal since he was still hurt. Then Yifan's tone turned grave as he said Tu was loyal and exactly the trustworthy person he needed to protect Yixu. Without hesitation, Yifan calmly told Datu that in return for his loyalty, he would help him enter the martial Wei realm. The next second, before Datu could react, Yifan unleashed the spiritual force within his body. In moments Datu's body transformed violently, power surging so intensely he couldn't help but scream from the heat. After a short while to gather himself, Datu noticed the next strange thing. He stared at his body in amazement, realizing his wounds had completely vanished. Yifan firmly declared that Datu had entered the martial way, was no longer ordinary, and would become an outstanding talent. Understanding it all came from Yifan, Datu bowed deeply in gratitude and vowed to risk his life to protect Miss Yixu. Pleased with his loyalty, Yifan gave him pills to improve his body and cultivation, promising that rewards wouldn't be lacking if he fulfilled his duty. Contrasting that calm, in another mansion furious shouting rang out as the Xiao family's sudden destruction cost them their key partner. The speaker was Xu Dong, the two families' eldest young master, who worried that without the Zhao family's support their plan to seize the Yi estate would fail. Unlike the panicking Xu Dong, Su Jian remained calm, analyzing that the elders were Yi Changfeng's men and their faction had no voice yet. Soon after, Xu Dong put on a sly smile and proposed hiring someone to assassinate Yi Changfeng and Yifan. Apparently prepared, Su Dong mentioned Grandmaster Fan Yi in Yun City, saying a high enough price would secure his services, prompting Su Jian to repeat the title Grandmaster in thought. Su Jin feared exposure and cited the forces backing the Yi family, but Su Dong firmly reassured him that Fan Yi's good reputation would help eliminate future troubles. At the hospital, after speaking with Datu, Yi Fan strolled leisurely down the corridor. At that moment a notification appeared on the screen that Mr. Fan Yi had just received a new mission. Yi Fan raised an eyebrow, surprised that this identity of his was quickly being contacted. Reading the details, his eyes immediately flashed with cold murderous intent, because Su Dong offered a bounty to kill Yi Chengfeng and Yi Fan and demanded to witness the deaths. Yi Fan was outraged, grinding his teeth at the direct provocation. Yi Fan immediately replied, accepting the mission and agreeing to meet at midnight under the Yun City Bridge for a 1 billion fee. Using the time, Yi Fan quickly restored his vigor and prepared to collect another debt. In the city's lively Tavi area, bright lights starkly contrasted the cold atmosphere outside. Wang Qiao, the Wang family's eldest son, was indulging in luxury and pleasure. That joy was shattered when Lu Ming burst in, panicking to report that old Lang Wu's attempt to kill Su Yaixu failed and his men were all wiped out. That single sentence made Wang Qiao explode in anger, loudly berating old Lang Wu and his subordinates as useless. Though frightened, Lu Ming reported that the perpetrator might be Yi Fan, causing Wang Qiao to be astonished at the name. Despite the warning, Wang Qiao still looked down on Yi Fan and decided to keep pressuring the Su family to show his superiors he was taking action. While Wang Qiao was still furious, the person just mentioned suddenly appeared, drawing everyone's gaze. Regaining his composure, Wang Qiao unleashed his full fury on the newcomer, roaring to demand their identity and why they barged in. It turned out Yi Fan had disguised himself as Fan Yi, smiling inscrutably as he introduced himself to Wang Qiao. Yi Fan's calm intrusion enraged Wang Qiao, who loudly ordered his subordinate to drag him out, but was cut off coldly by Yi Fan, who hinted that his men had already been dealt with. Yi Fan smiled serenely and, in a gentle tone, revealed the shocking truth that everyone outside had been knocked out by him. Only then did Wang Qiao truly panic, becoming highly alert and repeatedly questioning Yi Fan's identity and purpose. Brushing aside the blocking henchmen, Yi Fan strolled forward and reassured him that he was here to help Wang Qiao deal with the Su family. Yi Fan casually sat on the sofa and claimed to be Fan Yi, causing Wang Qiao to gasp in shock when he recognized the Grandmaster who had destroyed the Xiao family. Realizing who he was, Wang Qiao was overjoyed and hurriedly said any request could be negotiated if Fan Yi would act. Yi Fan immediately doubled the price, demanding 2 billion and promising he could make Su Corporation disappear entirely. Hearing 2 billion, Wang Qiao turned pale in panic, flustered because the Wang family's assets weren't enough for such a sum. Though he arrived first, Yi Fan still unleashed a threatening air, scolding Wang Qiao for daring to look down on the Grandmaster, making him tremble and apologize. Wang Qiao then hurriedly did the math, recalling the Liu family's promise that if the Su family were eliminated, the Wang family would take over Su Shi, which could make up the 2 billion. Cold sweat pouring, Wang Qiao still worried the Liu family might renege or that Fan Yi might turn on the Wang family as he did the Xiao family. Wang Qiao stood up and feigned respect, saying he'd gather the money immediately while secretly planning a safe retreat. Not willing to let him leave easily, Yi Fan suddenly made a threatening gesture that brushed past Wang Qiao. Seeing the weapon was only a plastic straw, Wang Qiao was still scared pale and hurriedly begged Yi Fan for forgiveness. Yi Fan sat back calmly and remarked that admitting fault was a good thing. Though his tone was gentle, his words carried heavy pressure as he gave Wang Qiao exactly 10 minutes. Yi Fan was arrogant, bluntly ordering Wang Qiao to gather the money on the spot. Understanding the situation, Wang Qiao hurriedly obeyed and frantically called home to transfer 2 billion to hire Grandmaster Fan Yi. Facing a life or death crisis, Wang Qiao urged the transfer without hesitation, while Yi Fan sneered coldly, since anyone who touched Yaixu would never be spared. Within minutes the money was transferred successfully. Wang Qiao trembled as he confirmed with Yi Fan and cautiously asked if he could leave. By now Wang Qiao still didn't know whom he'd provoked, while Yi Fan leisurely teased that Wang Qiao's matter was settled, and it was time to deal with his own. A chill of fear ran down his spine and Wang Qiao tensely began to ask Yi Fan's intentions. Before he finished, Yi Fan bluntly exposed the truth, saying he had come to settle the score for attacking his wife, causing Wang Qiao to cry out Yi Fan's name in horror. The successive shocks broke Wang Qiao, who realized Fan Yi and Yi Fan were the same person and that it had all been a disguise. Panic peaked as Wang Qiao recalled that 5 years ago Yi Fan had been a top grandmaster, now even deeper than expected, while he himself had dared to touch his wife. Reacting instantly, Wang Qiao knelt and clung to Yi Fan's legs begging for mercy, admitting he was coursed and swearing to work like an ox and horse to atone. But Yi Fan was unmoved and, with a tone of amusement, said there was no need to slave away, he only wanted to borrow something from Wang Kao. Faced with overwhelming power, Wang Kao humbled himself completely to beg for his life, repeatedly saying Yifan could borrow anything, even everything. Yifan's presence filled the room, each word drawn out into a suffocating pressure as he slowly said, "I want." Immediately, Yifan acted decisively and coldly declared that what he wanted to borrow was Wang Kao's life. Though his organs were gravely wounded, Wang Kao's mind seethed with hatred for Yifan. Furious at being deceived and vowing he would not let him be even if he died. Despite his condition, Wang Kao still managed to react quickly, by managing to call Lu Ran. At that moment, Yifan's keen senses detected the unusual movement. This made Yifan's anger explode, and with a single motion he knocked the phone to the floor. Yifan's domineering aura was too much for Wang Kao to bear. Even as he desperately protested, he meant no harm. Not wanting more words with his enemy, Yifan increased the force so Wang Kao couldn't speak. Next came a fatal choke, producing an explosion that left Wang Kao no chance to wait for rescue. With one strike, Wang Kao died on the spot. And Yifan's cold voice threatened the others, sending Lu Ming's group into panic as they knelt and begged for mercy. No matter how they begged, they were erased to dust, and Yifan then approached the remaining item on the floor. It was the phone showing an incoming call to Liu Ran that Wang Kao had strained to make. Unclear how much the other side heard, but despite the cracked screen, Yifan could still operate the phone. After sending the message, Yifan coldly threw the phone to the ground like trash. At the same time in his office, Wang Zhong received his son So's message and panicked upon learning Wang Chao had been kidnapped. Unaware it was a trap, Wang Zhong worried only for his son and immediately ordered all Wang family men to ambush Yun City Bridge. Rage showed on Wang Zhong's face as he vowed to find out who dared kidnap his only son. In the sunlit hospital room, a worried voice sounded as Yifan called Yaixu to ask if she had woken up. Cradled in familiar arms, Yaixu slowly opened her eyes, waking from a long sleep. Yifan held her tightly, joy and relief flooding him at her safety. Once more alert, Yaixu saw the man before her and softly called Xiao Fan's name. Recalling everything, she bashfully covered her mouth as she realized Yifan was the one who saved her. The image of Yifan leaping up to shield her from danger replayed in her mind, making Yaixu's heart stir at his heroic figure. Seeing her silent, Yifan gently lifted her chin and said the doctor advised more rest before she could go home. Hearing him, Yaixu lightly pinched his cheek, showing conflicted feelings and saying she couldn't go home yet. She tried to sit up and softly explained the company was launching a new drug soon and there was much to do, promising to return after finishing it. Just then Yaixu's phone began ringing nonstop. Answering it, the news changed Yaixu's expression completely when she learned the formula leaked and a competitor had released the product. At the same time, Xiahao entered and said they had also received the news via a live stream. Then Xiahao held up the phone streaming the footage for everyone to see. On the screen, Yan Yang confidently stood and presented the product, claiming it was a beauty tonic researched by the Li family for years and showed clear effects in just 1 month. Seeing that, Yaixu flushed with anger, furious that Sushi's cherished formula had been brazenly stolen. Yaixu trembled with indignation, remembering that Sushi had poured nearly all resources for years into this drug to turn the tide. Xiahao worriedly said Sushi was being squeezed by many partners, and without this flagship product the group could hardly hold on. That situation only strengthened Yaixu's resolve. She wiped her tears and her gaze hardened. Then Yaixu left, asking Xiahao to take care of Yifan despite his calls after her. After Yaixu left, Yifan sulked and muttered that a beauty tonic was nothing, he could come up with something to shock the world. Hearing this, Xiahao laughed, seeing the reality Yifan's proposals wouldn't convince Miss Su, and Yifan quietly admitted that everyone now saw him as a fool. After thinking in silence for a moment, Yifan suddenly thought of something and blurted it out. Yifan mentioned Yu Ling Long once wanted to invite medicine Saint Lei Qianju to treat him, but Xiahao doubted whether such a great figure would heed him. Yifan, however, was not worried and only smiled confidently, believing there would be no obstacle. Just then his phone suddenly rang repeatedly, making Yifan pause. On hearing his voice, Wu Fei admitted her fault, and asked him for help. Hearing her choked sobs, Yifan was puzzled why she was so distressed. He then feigned naivety to probe, calling Wu Fei his ex-wife and asking if someone was bullying her. Those words moved and pained Wu Fei, who couldn't help but say only he treated her that way. She insisted that no matter the circumstances, he had always been sincere with her. Wu Fei choked out that her uncle wanted to marry her to Li Yan Yang, and that tonight was the engagement party, begging Yifan to save her. Hearing Li Yan Yang's name, Yifan's anger flared. This man had harmed the Yi and Su families and now sought to force Wu Fei. Yifan didn't hesitate and bluntly told Wu Fei to pick him up so he could deal with Li Yan Yang. Soon after, Wu Fei and Yifan stood before the engagement venue. Seeing Yifan silent, Wu Fei looked at him and spoke up, Admitting she knew he was still angry with her, she grabbed his sleeve and sadly explained that the broken engagement was forced by her uncle because her father needed medical costs, leaving her no choice. Hearing that, Yifan silently confirmed it was true, recalling her father's accident leaving him vegetative and her uncle taking control of finances, forcing her to yield. Seeing him still silent, Wu Fei choked and affirmed that the one she loved had always been Yifan, which is why she waited 5 years. Yifan frowned deeper, though he understood her helplessness. He had other aims and decided to go along with it. Before he could say more, a voice inside announced the bride was coming, startling Wu Fei. Contrary to Wu Fei's worry, Yifan appeared intrigued, saying the play was officially starting. A group of sycophants surrounded Li Yang, flattering him and congratulating his career and love, while Li Yang smugly thought Xuan Wu Fei had finally submitted to him. In his ecstasy, Li Yang imagined a bright future, believing that with the power behind Xuan Wu Fei's mother, even the Liu family need not be worried. Lost in fantasy, a sudden call of his name snapped Li Yang back to reality, making him even more certain the woman and her backing would be his tonight. But when he saw who stood beside Xuan Wu Fei clearly, Li Yang froze and shouted Yifan's name in shock. Discomfort erupted and Li Yang angrily demanded why Xuan Wu Fei had brought Yifan here. No sooner had the words ended than someone stepped out of the car and shouted, scolding Li Yang for speaking rudely. Seeing Yifan insulted, Fu Gai flew into a rage and warned Li Yang to address him properly or be slapped. Hearing that, Li Yang sneered and mocked the Yi family's decline, saying Yifan would die sooner or later. Before he could finish, Li Yang received a powerful slap straight to the face. The strong slap sent Li Yang sprawling. He angrily called for men and threatened Fu Gai. Fu Gai paid Li Yang no mind, disdainfully judging him as having no real power to be feared. As tensions threatened to erupt, Xiaohou led people in to intervene, advising Li Yang to restrain himself on this happy day. Xiaohou's appearance made Li Yang suspicious, wondering how Xuan Wu Fei knew such powerful figures. Wu Fei ignored Li Yang and bluntly demanded they go inside to clarify things in front of everyone. That attitude made Li Yang grind his teeth in fury, warning Wu Fei to think carefully about her actions. In the banquet hall, when a couple entered, everyone cheered, thinking the bride and groom had arrived. When they realized the woman Wu Fei held hands with wasn't Li Yang, the crowd was shocked to see it was Yifan. Murmurs rose, suggesting Li Yang had been publicly humiliated and that both the Xuan family and Li family were made a mockery. The incident enraged Mr. Lai, who confronted Xuan Zhengguo, while Xuan Zhengguo stood stunned and stammered he knew nothing. Immediately, Xuan Zhengguo stepped up to Wu Fei and sternly questioned her actions. But Wu Fei remained silent, offering no response or reaction. Frustrated by her coldness, he demanded Wu Fei apologize to Li Yang, claiming she didn't understand the situation. Wu Fei ignored every gaze, linked arms with Yifan, and loudly declared before everyone. She explained the broken engagement with the Yi family was arranged by her second uncle, and she did not consent, and affirmed she and Yifan were childhood betrothed. Wu Fei declared Yifan was her one true husband, and asked everyone to bless them. Faced with that, Yifan couldn't help feeling regretful, thinking if she'd acted like this before things might not have come to this. In stark contrast, Li Yang, furious, crushed the bouquet and muttered the bitter words congratulations. Yang's eyes were bloodshot with rage. He couldn't accept having to offer blessings to Wu Fei and another man at his engagement. The sudden incident immediately sparked public uproar, with gossip ranging from Xuan family turmoil to the Li family becoming a laughingstock. Amid the chaotic whispers and jeers, a glass was suddenly flung forcefully to the ground. The loss of face enraged Mr. Lai, who turned to demand a clear explanation from Xuan Zhengguo. Mr. Li's reaction startled Xuan Zhengguo, who hurriedly reassured him it was a misunderstanding and he would handle it. No sooner had he spoken than he berated Wu Fei, warning her that this action would lead to a tragic end. Wu Fei gripped Yifan's hand tightly, resolutely saying she had thought it through and believed being forced to marry Li Yang was a dead end. She asserted bringing Yifan was to make the truth clear to everyone. Wu Fei declared she would protect and love Yifan for life, but the words made Yifan suspicious, thinking she was seizing the moment. Yifan frowned at Wu Fei, coldly thinking that any compensation now was meaningless. The public display of affection made Li Yang so angry he let out a cold laugh. In his fury, Li Yang immediately ordered his men to act, shouting insults continuously. Following his subordinates, Li Yang arrogantly declared that if they weren't punished, the Li family would lose all face in Yun City. Humiliated at his engagement party, Yang angrily stepped forward, accusing Wu Fei of stubbornly choosing Yifan despite his good treatment. Before he could finish, Yang was suddenly struck by a punch to the face. The blow was so strong Yang staggered and fell to the ground. Fu Gai calmly rotated his wrist, coldly warning that anyone who insulted Fanye would be hit. leaving Yan Yang clutching his swollen face as he angrily called out Wang Fu Gai's name. Seeing his son hit, Li Fu flew into a rage and scolded Fu Gai as having no right to lay hands on his child. Li Fu pointed and ordered his men to rush forward and teach Fu Gai a lesson. Yi Fan saw the men charging and realized they were all experts, and Fu Gai could hardly hold them off alone. As the situation neared eruption, Li Hu stepped in to intervene, calling to resolve it with words instead of violence. Li Fu, holding his injured son, grew furious and sneered at the civility Li Hu mentioned. At that moment, a hot machine gun suddenly appeared. The man brazenly declared that the weapon was his version of civility, and he had the right to use it on anyone below Grandmaster level. Seeing they couldn't counter the weapon, Li Fu was forced to yield begrudgingly. After things calmed, the man turned to Yi Fan and politely asked them to leave. Witnessing it all, Wu Fei looked at Yi Fan with joy, believing that despite being seen as a fool he still had respectable connections. Just as they were about to leave, Zheng Guo called them back. Zheng Guo raised his phone, implicitly threatening Wu Fei with her father's condition in the hospital. On the phone was clear footage of someone gripping Zheng Hao's oxygen tube tightly. Seeing that, Wu Fei panicked, furiously questioning Zheng Guo about his actions. Zheng Guo smiled maliciously, saying he was forced to do it and only used drugs to keep her father unconscious, forcing Wu Fei to choose. Wu Fei cried but still resisted, reminding Zheng Guo that the victim was his own brother. Even so, he showed no concern for family ties, only resenting that the estate had been given to Wu Fei's father and the elder line, and claimed today was finally his turn to reclaim it. Not wanting complications, he forced Wu Fei to retract her words within 10 seconds and accept marrying young Master Lai, making her tremble with indignation as she cursed him vilely. Wu Fei collapsed to the ground, in utter pain from once believing she could finally be with Yi Fan. Thinking this, Wu Fei, tears in her eyes, looked at Yi Fan and choked out his name, while Yi Fan stood silently watching, wondering what she would choose. Seeing Yi Fan bewildered, Yan Yang sneered that a fool like him didn't deserve to dream of being with Wu Fei. Yan Yang immediately lunged to attack, confident Yi Fan couldn't defend himself and Fu Gai couldn't intervene in time, determined to wake him up with a beating. Unexpectedly, Wu Fei rushed out to block him, causing Yan Yang to hesitate as she warned him not to touch Yi Fan. That action left Yi Fan stunned for a moment. Still, Yan Yang was determined to strike, loudly demanding to punish Yi Fan for ruining the engagement and revealing his intent against the Ye family, which made Yi Fan more certain of the plot. Yan Yang's words angered Xia Hao's men, who shouted at him for his insolence. Seeing his teammates ready to strike, he immediately stopped them and said he'd deal with Lai Yan Yang himself. At the same time, Yi Fan quietly gathered energy in his hands, preparing to shock the Li family and their backers. Yan Yang, unaware the danger was near, continued to arrogantly taunt Yi Fan and threatened to beat him badly. Seeing this, Wu Fei panicked, flung her arms out to shield Yi Fan and cried out in plea. At the critical moment, Yi Fan suddenly, with an innocent tone, praised young Master Li for being kind for helping him find his brother. Then Yi Fan clapped and walked toward Yan Yang, ignoring Wu Fei's anxious calls. Seeing Yan Yang not stop, Fu Gai angrily prepared to intervene but was restrained by Xia Hao in time. As Li Yan Yang's strike neared, he didn't notice the brief change in Yi Fan's expression and arrogantly shouted a challenge. In that dangerous instant, Yan Yang's punch seemed to land but Yi Fan lightly dodged it. Yi Fan, using almost no force, quickly countered and locked Yan Yang's arm. With Yan Yang panicked and restrained, Yi Fan smirked mockingly and feigned innocence, asking if he was swatting a mosquito for him. It turned out Yi Fan had deliberately distracted him to give the hidden needle in his sleeve a chance to fire. The needle struck a vital point, causing Yan Yang to be hit by Yi Fan's corrosive fire technique. The terrifying thing was that aside from a startle, Yan Yang had no idea what had happened to him. Yan Yang trembled back, fearful and suspicious. He questioned Yi Fan, while Yi Fan played dumb, acting as if nothing had happened and blamed a mosquito. After a moment, Yan Yang realized he'd been ambushed before he could react and angrily confronted Yi Fan as his arm began to malfunction. Yan Yang's mind spun in chaos, unable to understand why his arm hurt as if about to break though no clear wound was visible. Meanwhile, Yi Fan secretly smiled coldly, knowing the needle not only would break the arm but also carried martial way energy and corrosive new fire, enough to severely injure Yan Yang's whole body. Rage erupted and Yan Yang screamed to kill Yi Fan, but Yi Fan immediately feigned ignorance and begged Wu Fei for help in a frightened manner. Hearing Yi Fan's plea, Wu Fei couldn't stand by and accused Yan Yang of still slandering him when Yi Fan had been harmed so much. Impatient from waiting too long, Li Fu forcefully ordered Yan Yang to stop, because today was the engagement, causing Yan Yang to turn in shock and call for his father. Without another word, Li Fu's cold glare immediately fixed on Zheng Guo standing behind. Zheng Guo understood and stepped forward to press Wu Fei for a decision as the 10 seconds had run out. Under pressure from her family, Wu Fei still refused to marry and trusted Yi Fan. but Zheng Go whispered threats that the Yi family was surrounded and would be wiped out if she continued to resist. Zheng Go continued to threaten to slaughter the Yi family that night, causing Wu Fei to panic and beg him not to involve Yi Fan for her sake. Fearing harm to the one she loved, Wu Fei finally broke and agreed to marry, begging Zheng Go to spare them. Zheng Go shamelessly produced a photo of Zheng Hua to intimidate her, ordering Wu Fei to obediently comply and go explain to the guests. At that point, Wu Fei had no choice but to helplessly accept her fate and step toward a bleak future. Before leaving, Wu Fei turned back, sobbing as she apologized to Yi Fan and admitted she had no other option. Wiping her tears, Wu Fei forced a smile, told Xiahao to take Yi Fan away and promised to protect him, making Fu Gai sigh sadly at her sacrifice. Without staying any longer, Wu Fei turned and walked away, calmly urging everyone to leave and lamenting she had fate but not destiny with Yi Fan. Watching Wu Fei walk away, Xiahao, after witnessing everything, could only whisper Yi Fan's name. From the moment Wu Fei was threatened until she left, Yi Fan remained completely silent and finally spoke his first word. Once he spoke, Yi Fan repeatedly taunted Yan Yang as sick and unable to get a wife, enraging Yan Yang, who furiously ordered them driven out. Yi Fan showed no panic and even deliberately repeated provocative lines that someone was about to die. Zheng Go therefore lowered his guard, sneering that Yi Fan was just a mocking fool. Fu Gai worriedly didn't understand Yi Fan's intent, while Xiahao grasped it more clearly and silently realized Yan Yang was unlikely to escape danger given Yi Fan's ability. As people left, Wu Fei was forced to repeat aloud to the crowd in a robotic tone that she was drunk, and that the engagement still belonged to her and Yan Yang. Hearing Wu Fei, Fu Gai grew more impatient and urged Yi Fan to act, ready to beat Yan Yang and take Wu Fei back. Contrary to Fu Gai's impatience, Yi Fan calmly muttered a countdown 3, 2, 1. Just as Yi Fan had said, the corrosive fire technique began to take effect on Yan Yang. The incident happened so suddenly that Wu Fei cried out in alarm. Li Fu panicked, grabbed his son and screamed for help in a father's terror. Someone trembling stepped forward to check Yan Yang's breathing, because his condition was terrifying. In an instant, Zheng Go went pale and shook as he realized Yan Yang had stopped breathing. Yi Fan tightened his grip and coldly finished the countdown to 0, showing everything had been planned. Coming to herself, Wu Fei saw Yi Fan still standing at the altar and called his name. Yi Fan, sensing her gaze, smiled and signaled reassurance that everything was fine. After a long day, Yi Fan had no intention of staying with Wu Fei and left the engagement venue immediately. In the night breeze, Yi Fan pondered that Wu Fei had compromised under coercion, and though for the Yi family he couldn't let the Xuan family fall to others, he needed to find a way to rescue them. As Yi Fan brooded, Fu Gai suddenly hugged him from behind and loudly called out, "Big brother." Fu Gai repeatedly asked if Yi Fan was sober, making him inwardly annoyed at the other's lack of restraint. Because of Fu Gai's rushiness, Yi Fan decided to keep playing dumb and replied that he hadn't been sleeping during the day, so why ask if he was sober? Yi Fan pushed Fu Gai away, showing disgust from the heat and urging him to back off so he could go rescue people. Unlike usual, Fu Gai excitedly insisted he had seen with his own eyes that as Yi Fan finished the count, Li Yan Yang immediately died. Amid the chaos, Yi Fan ordered Xiahao to investigate Xuan Zhenghua, Wu Fei's father, and Xiahao immediately obeyed. Xiahao then tasked Li Hu to check where Xuan Zhenghua was being treated and his condition, and Li Hu bowed and accepted the order. As Yun City's underworld boss, Xiahao pondered deeper, wondering if Yi Fan had some special identity or power. Beyond Xiahao, Li Hu also gradually realized the truth behind Yi Fan's teasing and silently resolved to respect him more. Li Hu worked swiftly, informing Xiahao that Xuan Zhenghua was at Third People's Hospital and set off immediately. Seeing Xiahao so dedicated, even Fu Gai doubted and asked why he cared about Yi Fan's former father-in-law so much. Hearing that, Xiahao froze, cold sweat breaking out and unsure how to answer. Before he could explain, Xiahao was glared at suspiciously by Fu Gai and threatened not to pay attention to Wu Fei. Li Hu hurriedly changed the subject, reporting that Li Yan Yang was dead, the engagement cancelled, and Xuan Zhenghua planned to move Xuan Zhenghua to prevent Wu Fei from seizing power. This news made Fu Gai so angry he forgot his earlier doubts, while Xiahao reassured him he had men holding the other side back. Contrary to the tension, Yi Fan smiled confidently. Having predicted Xuan Zhenghua wouldn't abandon Xuan Zhenghua now, it was just a matter of who was more capable. Time passed quickly, and finally the four of them arrived at Third People's Hospital. Before they reached the room door, an aggressive man blocked them and loudly demanded their identities. A bodyguard Fuan Zhenghua coldly stopped them, insisting no one could move Xuan Zhenghua without Director Xuan's orders. Fu Gai immediately lost his temper and cursed back, saying they dared bully his big brother's father-in-law and were asking for death, and the bodyguard retorted mockingly. Before more words were exchanged, Fu Gai struck, sending two burly bodyguards flying with one blow. After dealing with them effortlessly, Fu Gai dusted his hands and told Yi Fan they could go in. Seeing that, Sayahao broke into a sweat and realized even Fu Gai at Yifan's side couldn't be underestimated. Yifan immediately closed the ward door, leaving Fu Gai and the others waiting outside. Contrary to Xiaohao's calm, Fu Gai angrily banged on the door, loudly complaining about being locked out. Inside the equipment-filled ward, Yifan ignored the outside noise and fell silent before the elder who had once loved him. The man on the bed was Xuan Xinghua, head of the Xuan family and father of Xuan Wufei. Xuan Xinghua was completely motionless despite Yifan's checks. There were no signs of waking. With the Yi family genius's skill, Yifan could tell at a glance the man had been poisoned with 17 extremely lethal toxins. This finding confirmed Yifan's earlier suspicion that the accident years ago was suspicious, since the surface wound carried a compound toxin that kept Xuan Zhenghua comatose for years. With such a complex toxin, even a small error during detoxification could cost Xuan Zhenghua his life. Nonetheless, Yifan believed the healing techniques passed down in the Cloud Dragon Ring could handle this poison. Without hesitation, Yifan deployed the secret Silver Needle method along with the Demon Gate 13 Needles technique. In moments, Xuan Zhenghua showed a first reaction if only a slight grimace. Violet vein-like patterns appeared on Xuan Zhenghua's body, forcing the black toxin to gather in one direction. The toxin was so vicious that drops that hit the floor corroded it, revealing the cruelty of whoever was behind it. After a few minutes, Xuan Zhenghua finally opened his eyes after 5 years of coma. Though still weakened by the toxin, Xuan Zhenghua recognized Yifan and called his name, prompting Yifan to hurry to him. Just as they were about to reunite, someone burst in, loudly declaring the army was on duty and threatening to kill anyone who obstructed them. The army's arrival shocked Yifan. He hadn't expected the matter to involve the military. While Yifan was still stunned inside, Go Fei, army major of Yun City, led soldiers into the hospital, loudly ordering everyone out of the way. Lai Hu didn't back down, standing his ground and insisting this was a private hospital, and no one could enter without young Master Yi's orders. Seeing Lai Hu refuse to cooperate, Go Fei signaled his soldiers to raise their guns and coldly warned they were courting death. The threat only made Lai Hu more resolute. He demanded Go Fei present proper paperwork if he wanted to pass. The demand for documents left Go Fei embarrassed, since he had been sent by Xuan Zhengguo only to intimidate and had no official papers. Unable to present documents, Go Fei claimed it was a top-secret military mission to continue the intimidation, warning that bullets wouldn't show mercy if they didn't move. Go Fei met Lai Hu's firmness. Lai Hu showed no fear and ordered his subordinates to arm up, and 2 bodyguards immediately raised their guns. As the tense standoff unfolded, Yifan's curious voice suddenly came from behind Lai Hu. Yifan feigned naivety, stepped closer to inspect Li Jing's gun, and asked in surprise if it was a real firearm. Yifan's advance angered Li Jing, who yelled and shoved him back. Yifan pretended to stagger and drop something to the floor, crying out with exaggerated distress. As he fell, a badge rolled from Yifan toward the other man's boot. Thinking it was just debris, Li Jing annoyedly kicked the badge aside without looking. When Go Fei glimpsed the item, he immediately grew suspicious, frowning to stop them because it looked familiar. Li Jing picked up the badge to examine it, puzzled to see a turtle carved with 4 golden stars. Not recognizing its value, Li Jing casually tossed it into a recycling bin, thinking it a worthless trinket. Instantly Go Fei went pale, and lunged to stop it, acting as if protecting something extremely important. With quick reflexes, Go Fei snatched the badge just before it fell away. Examining it closely, Go Fei was shocked and excited to realize it was the command token of one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Xuanwu War Zone, with authority to mobilize large forces across provinces. Go Fei's unusual reaction confused Li Jing, who then remembered the badge had fallen from Yifan. Seeing Yifan's guileless smile, Go Fei couldn't help but suspect, could this person really be one of the 4 heavenly kings of Xuanwu? Trusting the token absolutely, Go Fei needed no proof and immediately ordered everyone to kneel, prompting a subordinate to ask why. Without explanation, Go Fei bowed and paid respects to Yifan, declaring himself a Xuanwu subordinate and apologizing for his rudeness. Half bewildered, half stunned, all the soldiers knelt with Go Fei, murmuring about Yifan's heavenly king identity and begging for mercy. As every soldier bowed, Yifan quietly gave an inscrutable smile. Then Yifan feigned innocence, acting confused and asking why they were kneeling, telling them to stand up. Go Fei held the token reverently with both hands, trembling as he apologized for not recognizing Yifan's heavenly king status and begged forgiveness. Yifan picked up the token, pretended to inspect it curiously, and remarked that the golden object must be valuable. He leaned close to Go Fei and whispered suggestively to keep it secret, warning that others might come to snatch the gold. Hearing this, Go Fei immediately grew suspicious, wondering if Yifan was truly stupid or merely pretending. Looking closely at Yifan's face, Go Fei suddenly felt a terrifying murderous aura and broke into a cold sweat. That moment made Go Fei realize the frightening truth: Yifan was not stupid but intentionally playing dumb. After understanding everything, Go Fei stood, bowed respectfully, pledged to obey the Heavenly King, while Yi Fan casually waved them off. Before leaving, Go Fei warned Yi Fan to beware of Xuanzeng Go, which only confirmed Yi Fan's suspicion that this man was behind today's events. As Go Fei's group departed, Fu Gai immediately asked Yi Fan about the Heavenly King token, thinking it a symbol of supreme authority. Seeing Fu Gai stare at the token, Yi Fan made a fuss as if afraid of it being stolen and refused to show it, leaving Fu Gai to laugh teasingly. While the two were still noisy outside, Xuanzeng woke thanks to Yi Fan, but could only sit in stunned silence at the successive upheavals. Though his head ached from waking after 5 years, Xuanzeng thought clearly, resented Xuanzeng Go, and vowed not to lose Yi Fan, the greatest boon to the Xuan family and Wu Fei. However, Yi Fan asked him to continue feigning a coma before Wu Fei, leaving Xuanzeng worried about how to warn his daughter. As he was distraught, Xuanzeng heard a familiar voice asking about his condition. At the sound of his daughter's voice, Xuanzeng immediately smiled gently, flooded with joy at Wu Fei's arrival. Wu Fei looked visibly tense, her voice trembling as she asked about her father's condition. Fu Gai gently reassured her, saying Yi Fan had driven off the men sent by second uncle. Hearing Fu Gai, Wu Fei froze and awkwardly admitted once more that Yi Fan had helped her. Suddenly Wu Fei stepped forward, hugged Yi Fan and lightly kissed his cheek, leaving him utterly stunned. By reflex Yi Fan pushed her away, almost making her fall, and naively said Yaixu, his wife, would not let him kiss others. Wu Fei sank to the floor in tears, painfully realizing she was no longer Yi Fan's wife and blaming herself for hurting him many times. Seeing her fragile state, Fu Gai pityingly helped her up inside, advising her not to torment herself. Wu Fei suddenly stood and swore she would be Yi Fan's woman for life, prompting him to softly call her name. Immediately Yi Fan naively refused again, saying Wu Fei had left him before and he now had a wife, Yaixu. Hearing this, Wu Fei was shaken, her body trembling as she realized the relationship between Yi Fan and Yaixu had progressed. Wu Fei fell silent, her face flushed, lips pressed tight from shame and embarrassment. Determined, Wu Fei stepped forward to beg Yi Fan, saying she could do what others had done. At that tense moment, a cold voice called Yi Fan's name, cutting the scene short. They both turned and saw Yaixu angry, causing Yi Fan to panic and cry out, knowing he was in trouble. Yaixu coldly exposed Wu Fei for using and betraying Yi Fan, asserting that he had sincere wives and didn't need someone like her. Wu Fei tried to explain but Yaixu cut her off, telling her to leave before Ling Long returned. Hearing this, Wu Fei paled, unwilling but accepting to leave, still declaring she would come back for Yi Fan. As Wu Fei left, Yi Fan turned to ask Yaixu about Ling Long's arrival. Yaixu pinched Yi Fan's cheek, saying Ling Long would bring the medicine saint to treat him and punish him, making him yelp in pain. Yi Fan quietly calculated that with Lei Qianju he could legitimately help Yaixu's company. Evening fell at the airport as the sun slowly set behind distant mountain ranges. Amid the bustling crowd, Yi Fan kept looking around, silently wondering when Ling Long would arrive. Xia Hao immediately sternly warned everyone to stay highly vigilant, since many in the shadows didn't want Yi Fan recovered and might seize the chance to strike him or Elder Lei. Fu Gai asked in astonishment, saying Elder Lei was a top master valued by the imperial family, and he couldn't believe someone dared act rashly. Lai Hu calmly reported discovering at least 20 or 30 suspicious figures, many martial way masters and even beyond that realm, making Fu Gai realize with alarm they were no match. Yi Fan grew colder, calculating that his current strength was insufficient, and he needed to cultivate stronger aids. Yi Fan raised an eyebrow as a signal, which Xia Hao immediately understood and nodded. Xia Hao calmly ordered the weak to be dealt with first, and that the strong opponents would be handled by other means. Lai Hu accepted the order at once. Amid the bustling crowd, Yi Fan watched the flight information board intently. Yi Fan frowned slightly, his expression turning serious. Elsewhere, Dada quietly reported that most of their people had lost contact, likely driven back by the He faction. Ming Wang coldly asked how many could still act. Dada stammered that only 3 remained, including Ming Wang. Hearing this, Ming Wang flew into a rage and punched Da in the face, calling him useless. Caught off guard, Dada clasped his face in panic and begged Ming Wang to calm down. Ming Wang ignored Dada, coldly looked at the board and said Lei Xianju was about to land. Based on the flight info, Ming Wang ordered a subordinate to block Yi Fan while he himself would intercept Lei Qianju. Ming Wang bowed his head and coldly affirmed this was an order from above and Lei Qianju must be stopped. Lei Qianju and Ling Long stepped out of the airport doors calmly among the passing crowd. Hidden in the crowd, Ming Wang pushed his glasses and silently calculated that they should first use threats to force Lei Qianju to retreat. He had decided that if Lei Qianju stubbornly went to Yun City to rescue Yi Fan, he would kill him without hesitation. At that moment, Yi Fan slowly pointed ahead and hesitated, saying they seemed to have appeared. The two suddenly blocked their way, making Fu Gai frown in anger, thinking they were brazenly trying to ruin their plans. Contrary to Fuga's seriousness, the two opponents smiled smugly and taunted them. A cold murderous glint flashed in Fugai's eyes as he opened his mouth to speak. Before he could finish, Dada suddenly rushed forward and threw a direct punch. Fugai dodged aside hurriedly, startled, and cursed at being hit by surprise. The force of the punch shattered the wall column behind, revealing a large hole. The sight shocked Fugai, who realized the opponents had reached the martial way control realm, their strength matching his. Before he could steady himself, Lanji spun and delivered a heavy kick, forcing Fugai to bend back to barely avoid it. Immediately after, Dada landed a heavy punch to Fugai's abdomen, leaving him no time to evade. Sayahao rushed over to check, and Fugai replied with a fierce look that he was fine. Fugai quickly assessed the situation. Facing two martial way masters alone would be quite exhausting. Amid the chaos, Ming Wang blended into the crowd and quietly left the scene. Just after leaving, Ming Wang sneered that dealing with Fugai and Sayahao would suffice. Not noticing Yifan feigning ignorance and chasing after them shouting to reclaim a plush toy, Dada laughed loudly and launched a decisive punch meant to finish their opponent. Fugai gritted his teeth and instantly raised his hands to block the blow. At that moment, Yifan coldly snapped his fingers. An object thrown from the protagonist's hand flew to the fat man's arm. He was suddenly surprised, not knowing why he couldn't move. Fugai's eyes suddenly lit up. He immediately realized this was a favorable opportunity. Immediately after, Fugai threw a powerful punch straight to Data's head, knocking him unconscious. Having just struck, Fugai excitedly boasted that his domineering aura was so strong the opponent dared not move. Seeing this, Lanji trembled with fear, unable to believe Fugai could dominate despite having been evenly matched before. At that moment, Fugai turned his head with a murderous glare that made Lanzi startle in terror. Lanji's face went pale. He panicked and begged Fugai not to come closer. After only a few attacks, Lanji's face was battered and he was completely unable to resist. After dealing with both, Fugai casually brushed his hands off and sighed that he had grown even stronger. Suddenly Fugai heard a voice accusing someone of stealing a plush toy. From the sound, Yifan was bawling and running ahead, loudly demanding his plush back. Hearing this, the surrounding crowd immediately grew furious, accusing Ming Wang of hypocrisy for stealing a child's toy and shouting to block him, causing him to turn pale and shout for them to get away. While fleeing, Ming Wang was angry and puzzled, not understanding when he had taken Yifan's plush. Ming Wang didn't want to waste time on the crowd. In his head he planned to coordinate with reinforcements to break Yuling Long's defenses and deal with Lei Xianju. Seeing Yifan still tailing him, Ming Wang smiled coldly, confident he would quickly lose this fool. Immediately Ming Wang executed his lightness skill divine movement cloud kick and dashed forward. Ming Wang inwardly gloated because this lightness skill was his signature technique. But at that moment, the familiar voice of Yifan demanding his plush came from behind. Turning back, Ming Wang was stunned to see Yifan still keeping pace, and Yifan slowly asked back in a naive way. Ming Wang quickly glanced ahead and saw Lei Tianju very close, reminding himself not to be distracted. As he neared his target, Ming Wang loudly called out to Lei Xianju. At that exact moment, Yifan suddenly grabbed Ming Wang's leg tightly. The unexpected pull caused Ming Wang to lose balance and fall face first to the ground. Yifan immediately rushed over excitedly, glad to have finally caught Ming Wang and demanding his plush back. At that moment, Ling Long softly called Yifan's name, surprised to see him there. Yifan promptly pointed at Ming Wang and loudly accused that Ling Long had arrived at the right time, because this man stole his plush. Falsely accused, Ming Wang trembled with anger and snarled that he did not steal the plush, telling Yifan to get lost. Watching their heated quarrel, Ling Long's expression darkened slightly as she turned her attention to Ming Wang. Yifan frowned, his voice angrier, insisting Ming Wang was the one who took the plush and demanding it be returned. Ming Wang's face darkened as he quickly calculated that if Lei Xianju couldn't heal Yifan, killing Yifan would still serve their purpose. He thought that even if he couldn't kill him, crippling Yifan would be a great achievement. So he immediately launched an attack. While being attacked, Yifan angrily called Ming Wang shameless and demanded his plush back. Seeing Yifan completely unharmed, Ming Wang was horrified that his Kai strike had hit with no effect. At that moment, Yifan coldly seized Ming Wang's wrist. Yifan's eyes darkened and his voice dropped as he declared that evildoers must be punished. At hearing this, Ming Wang was utterly terrified. Trembling and screaming in horror, Yifan's face turned completely cold as he decisively and ruthlessly snapped Ming Wang's wrist. A surge of energy instantly engulfed him, making Ming Wang scream in pain as his cultivation suffered a catastrophic setback. The pain forced Ming Wang to collapse to his knees. His face drained as he realized his cultivation had fallen from Grandmaster to a lower realm. Ming Wang forced himself up, grabbed Yifan by the collar, and angrily demanded what he had done to him. At that moment, a cold power struck from behind, and Ling Long warned Ming Wang in a chill voice not to touch her man. Panicked, Ming Wang raised his hands to block Ling Long's strike and cried out in pain. Cornered, Ming Wang, ashamed and enraged, growled a threat asking if they knew who he relied on. Cold sweat poured as Ming Wang quickly calculated that staying alive was more important and he should try to escape. But then Ming Wang's whole body convulsed, his face paling from intense pain. Ming Wang spat a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. Seeing him fall, Ling Long wondered suspiciously how he could die when she had only used martial way control level power. Yi Fan revealed a crafty look, thinking that if the man was already severely weakened he couldn't withstand a strike from the battle goddess. Lei Qianju stroked his chin thoughtfully, lamenting that clearly many people did not want the Yi family to be at peace. Wuqi suddenly appeared behind them, whispering a threat for Lei Qianju to leave Kaiyun City and stop treating Yi Fan, or be silenced. Seeing the danger, Ling Long immediately warned Lei Qianju to be careful. Lei Qianju sneered and cast a spell, mocking that these people had no right to order him around. He swept out a palm, asserting that the villains were behind the harm done to the Yi family. Without hesitation, the attackers countered, coldly declaring Lei Qianju had courted his own death. A blade shot forward at extreme speed, and at a glance Qianju realized it carried a deadly poison. Wuqi smiled wickedly as murderous intent flared, unleashing the blazing light storm technique, claiming it couldn't be dodged in time. A barrage of sword images rushed in, making Qianju pale as he thought it would be hard to escape given their speed and number. Ling Long cried out Lei Qianju's name in alarm, her heart sinking as she feared Yi Fan had no hope left. At the critical moment, Yi Fan suddenly lunged, pushing Lan Ji hard while feigning pain from the collision. Before Lan Ji could react, she was shoved forward, landing directly between the attack and Lei Qianju. Realizing the strike was coming, Lan Ji cried out in terror and begged. Lan Ji took the full hit, spat blood, and was horrified to find Fan Yi's body technique had vanished, as if their positions had been swapped. Lan Ji fell to the ground in pain, unwillingly declaring that this couldn't be happening. Seeing that, Lei Qianju was greatly surprised, thinking the one in the floral robe must have been the final ace yet died too easily. Yi Fan gleefully mocked, taunting Lan Ji to get up and keep playing. Lei Qianju stared at Yi Fan, frowning as he speculated about his true identity. At that moment, Ling Long grabbed Yi Fan's ear, making him wince in pain. Ling Long coldly scolded Yi Fan for having been awake for some time and daring to fool her, while he whimpered about the pain. Yi Fan felt wary inside, lamenting that as expected Ling Long was not easy to fool. Ling Long gasped softly as Yi Fan suddenly hugged her, burying his face in her chest, while complaining of pain and calling her a mean wife. Yi Fan looked up pretending to be stupid, pouting and asking why Ling Long came to sleep with him, then pinched him. Seeing Yi Fan acting silly in public, Ling Long blushed with embarrassment and hastily stopped him from speaking improperly, and silently scolded him for being an idiot. Wondering how he could say such things in front of everyone, Ling Long quickly pulled Yi Fan before Ju, formally requested his help and introduced him as her husband. Qinju nodded and suggested finding a quiet place first so he could examine Yi Fan's condition. Minutes later, everyone moved to a more private room in the villa, with just the two of them. Qinju had Yi Fan sit opposite him and asked him to extend his hand for a pulse check. Qinju smiled kindly and, in a coaxing tone like to a child, promised to buy Yi Fan candy. Suddenly, Yi Fan moved and grabbed Qinju's wrist with extreme speed. Yi Fan calmly stated precisely his health condition and that Qinju had drunk last night, noting a rapid pulse and poor rest. Exposed, Qinju was shocked, trembling as he looked at Yi Fan and suspected he was not foolish at all. Yi Fan dropped the act and admitted he had been fully alert, only inconvenient to reveal it publicly. From that movement, Qinju realized the one who saved him at the airport was Yi Fan, who used the Fan Yu Choi En-Tine technique to escape the Lai Hoa storm's toxin. Yi Fan expressed his hope for assistance, saying he had two matters needing Qinju's help. Qinju questioned this, thinking Yi Fan's martial way and medical skills surpassed his. Wondering what help was needed, Yi Fan honestly explained the situation, saying only Xia Hao knew his identity and abilities, and they lacked manpower so needed Qinju's aid. Because of a life-saving debt and long ties with the Yi family, Qinju immediately promised wholehearted help and to act when needed. Relieved, Yi Fan happily said Yaixu Company's beauty tonic prescription was stolen and asked Qinju to provide an alternative formula for her. Qinju was flustered for lacking a suitable prescription, but Yi Fan confidently produced Su family and said he had one. Yi Fan immediately wrote out a lost miraculous recipe, instructing precisely that it's from the Divine Farmer Canon, heat to exactly 323 degrees and simmer for 8 minutes, no deviation allowed. Receiving Su family, Qinju was astonished, unable to believe familiar herbs could form a never-before-seen combination method. The more he examined the prescription, the more Qinju admired it, feeling his lifetime of practice rewarded to witness this lost formula. Faced with Yifan's profound knowledge, Tianju immediately performed a grand salute, declaring willingness to obey orders even at the cost of his life. Quietly hoping to study the prescription thoroughly, Yifan hurriedly helped him to his feet, then calmly stated his second request, to have Tianju nurture his grandfather's body. Tianju sighed in helplessness, saying he lacked the ability to take on such a treatment and declined. He solemnly explained Elder Yi had a congenital affliction and endured a shock, now beyond saving, blaming his own inadequacy. Yifan calmly comforted him, saying that to save his grandfather they must use methods beyond current medicine. Tianju was stunned by that confidence and guessed Yifan possessed another lost technique. Yifan calmly took out the silver needle set, claiming he would teach an acupuncture technique set to extend his grandfather's life by at least 20 years. Watching what Yifan was about to perform, Tianju was horrified and breathless. Spiritual force erupted, revealing a brilliant Marian diagram as Yifan drove the first needle into the Danzhong point, using ki power to stimulate the blood vessels. Yifan continued with precision, the second needle piercing the fengsha point, using ki force to lock and secure the vital flow. Tianju was so terrified he fell into his chair, realizing this was the long-lost 13 needles of Ghost Valley. Yifan smiled and praised Tianju for his extensive knowledge. Excited, Tianju sprang up, saying this acupuncture technique could seize life from death itself, and couldn't believe Yifan had been thought foolish for 5 years. Tianju recalled the youthful healer from 5 years ago in the southwest, and astonishedly guessed that person was Yifan. Yifan admitted his identity, feeling a bit embarrassed that someone still remembered his old title. In the silent room, Tianju suddenly dropped to his knees. Tianju respectfully performed the paying respect to master ritual, calling himself a disciple and thanking him for the teaching. Startled, Yifan hurriedly helped Tianju up and told him not to do that. Tianju refused to rise, insisting Yifan's medicine from 5 years ago was enough to be a teacher. He expressed his wish to follow and serve at Yifan's side, and begged to be taught after receiving the 13 needles of Ghost Valley. With no other option, Yifan privately agreed. Yifan warned that his identity must not be revealed to outsiders. Tianju answered respectfully and secretly rejoiced at his great luck. Worried about reporting the illness, Tianju was instructed by Yifan to spread the news that his health was improving. Yifan had already discerned the enemy's intentions and believed those behind them would act soon. Scene shifts to Elder Zhangji's villa, where he angrily berates his subordinates as useless. He's furious that so many people failed to stop Lei Qianju, were wiped out, giving Yishen hope to wake and the Yi family a chance to rise. A subordinate, seeing the elders' bad expressions, speaks up to soothe them, saying Lei Qianju only mentioned hope and the outcome isn't certain yet. Getting angrier, the elders retort that if it weren't certain, Lei Qianju wouldn't have made a fuss and invited all major figures in Yun City to the Yi family. He emphasizes that Yifan, since 15, was the top expert in Daxia, and if he wakes he will draw countless forces to support the Yi family. The subordinate proposes they must eliminate the threat completely, or their plan will be ruined. The elders agree and order a total cleanup, this time letting the subordinate carry it out personally. The subordinate is ecstatic, having long resented Yifan, and immediately vows not to fail the assignment. Meanwhile, Yifan is taking the chance to recharge in Yaixu's arms, comforting her he'll recover quickly. Yaixu gently replies, telling Yifan to obediently take his medicine to heal faster. Just as the mood turns sweet, Ling Long suddenly appears, flustering Yaixu. Yaixu nervously lets go of Yifan and begs Ling Long not to ask, but Ling Long teases, saying there's nothing shameful about husband and wife. Yifan suddenly pulls Ling Long close, half-jokingly asking if she wants to. Yifan can't restrain himself and gropes, making Ling Long embarrassed and angry as she tells him to let go. Ling Long blushes and runs outside, saying it's not her turn, while Yifan teases her from behind. After leaving, Ling Long trembles, puzzled why a light touch caused such a reaction. Ling Long suspects Yifan was teasing on purpose and wonders if he's truly recovered. A while later, Yifan shifts his demeanor entirely and calls the driver over. Yifan gets in the car and coldly orders to go straight to Yun City Bridge. The driver hesitates, warning that Wang family men are waiting at Yun City Bridge to kill Yifan, asking if he really wants to go meet Wang Zhang alone. Yifan folds his arms and smiles coldly, saying there's no need for drama because he himself hired someone for 2 million to assassinate himself. He calmly says he'll just sit back and watch the dog eat dog scene unfold. The scene immediately cuts to Yun City Bridge at the same time. A gang of thugs lies in ambush, repeatedly telling each other to stay alert and wait for the target. Just then, the leader's phone suddenly rings. A message shows his son was brutally beaten. A desperate plea for help and in order to avenge him if he doesn't survive. The message drives him mad, cursing. He keeps calling and vows to tear apart whoever did it. At the same time, Yifan holds Wang Qiao's phone, Wang Zhong's son, He had earlier powered it down and set it to turn on 10 minutes later as Xu Dong's phone. Yi Fan calmly watches through the window, thinking another important figure is about to arrive. Suddenly Yi Fan's pupils contract sharply. He sees a familiar luxury car coming the wrong way toward them. Yi Fan grits his teeth in hatred, smashes the car window, resentful of the two family for betraying his grandfather. At that moment, Xu Dong is leisurely driving his luxury car. Suddenly, Yi Fan lunges out to block the front of the car and demands it stop. The action startled Xu Dong, who almost lost control and ran into Yi Fan. Xu Dong got out, angrily scolding Yi Fan for not watching where he was going, asking if he wanted to die. Yi Fan immediately played dumb, complaining to Xu Dong that he was lost and very hungry. He kept begging Xu Dong to take him home. While pretending to plead, Yi Fan secretly slipped Wang Kao's phone into Xu Dong's pocket. Xu Dong didn't notice, pushed Yi Fan off the road in irritation and told him to get lost. Xu Dong sneered that Yi Fan could wait there, and maybe someone would save him before he starved. Xu Dong hurriedly drove off, unaware he'd fallen right into Yi Fan's plan, whom Yi Fan privately pitied for his stupidity. Because in Xu Dong's pocket at that moment, there was something extremely dangerous, Wang Kao's phone. Yi Fan smiled coldly, concluding that Xu Dong had chosen his own path to death. After driving for a while on the distant roads, Xu Dong then stopped at the designated spot, looked around and loudly called, "Big boss, you told me to come meet you, I'm here. Where are you?" At the same time, Wang Zhong and his men were hiding in the dark corner, wondering why Xu Dong, the Yi family foster grandson, had come so late and seemed to be meeting someone. He grumbled and dismissed him. "Forget him, keep calling. Tonight we must kill that bastard." But when they kept calling, the phone rang with the familiar message. "Sorry, the subscriber you are calling has powered off." This pushed him over the edge and he shouted, "Damn it." Then the hired muscle suddenly reported excitedly that he got through, leaving the boss stunned. "Where?" At the same time, a phone in Xu Dong's pants rang. The rich kid's circle calls him Tun, making him startled. "Whose phone is this? How is it on me?" He quickly picked up, "Hello, damn it, who is this?" As soon as they identified the culprit, Wang Zong stormed out angrily, "Damn it, so is Xu Dong, everyone. Get him." They quickly surrounded him while he was still dazed. What the hell is going on? Without listening to any explanation, Wang Zhong signaled to beat him to death. The crowd rushed in, with Wang Zhong leading. Xu Dong took a confusing punch to the face. "Manager Wang, what are you doing? Is there some misunderstanding?" He angrily struck him again on the crown. "Misunderstanding? You killed my son and call it a misunderstanding?" Xu Dong kept denying it. "I didn't. I was at home the whole time. I didn't meet young Master Wang." Hearing this, Wang Zhong grabbed his collar, shoved the phone to his face and demanded, "Then why is my son's phone in your hand?" Xu Dong insisted it had suddenly appeared on him. Then he remembered something. "Oh right. It was Yi Fan on the way here. I ran into Yi Fan. He must be framing me." Hearing that, Wang Zhong reconsidered. The Zhao family massacre. Xu being saved. It must have been Yi Fan. Has he woken up? But a second later he slapped him hard. "That idiot Yi Fan framed you. If you're remaking excuses, at least make a believable one. Almost dead and still lying. I'll send you to see little Xiao now." But then he kicked him in the stomach. The blow made his stomach achy. "Everything I said is true." Before he could finish denying it, Xu Dong fell into unconsciousness from the pain. Wang Zong then turned to the guard, saying they still hadn't found little Xiao's body, and that Xu Dong must be an accomplice's tail. Su Jane and tear him to pieces. Understood. At that moment, far off, a phone was directly pinging Wang Zong's men. Yi Fan asked coldly, "Old Wang, are they all back?" He replied, "Of course." Then Yi Fan instructed, "Find a stranger and send this video to Xu Jun so they keep tearing each other apart." Obeying, Old Wang quickly did so, saying, "The young master, rest assured, I've arranged it." Afterwards, Yi Fan pulled a miraculous vial from his pocket. "These are some second-grade pills. I refined. They can help you break through and enter the martial arts control realm." This left him stunned. "I'm over 50 and can still break through." Yi Fan added, "It's only the martial arts control realm. Follow me, and I guarantee your future will be bright." Hearing this, Old Wang was overjoyed and repeatedly thanked him. "Thank you, young master, yeah." His eyes shone as he kept expressing gratitude. He spent billions hiring alchemists to refine second-grade pills but couldn't find anyone until now. Hearing his thoughts, Yi Fan smiled. "No big deal. There are 5 pills. Give one to your boss and divide the rest as you like. There will be more later." Old Wang beamed. "I'll follow young master Yi completely." He then began to ask about young master Wang when Yi Fan cut him off. Old Wang. He smiled faintly, looking out the window. "If things go as planned, Cloud City will gain another Grand Master tomorrow." Meanwhile, at another place, the home of Yi Fan's brothers, Fu Gai sat dazed, staring at the plate before him. He'd spent 50,000 yuan on a stone from the black market, inside of which was a vital energy pill. Was the boss really that lucky? Putting doubts aside, he popped the pill into his mouth. Whatever upgrading is the way to better protect the boss. Suddenly Fuga's pupils contracted. His body trembled as currents flowed intensely through him. How strong the pill's effect was. Fuga began to cultivate. Gradually his nerves felt like they were burning, crying out, pain, too painful, my meridians seem to be shattered. Instantly his power, unable to be contained, burst outward. Bystanders gasped another breakthrough. They looked toward the Wong family. Everyone murmured, could that Wong fool have risen to martial grandmaster? Even Ling Long in the office peeked out. Fugai's upgrade is good that makes Yi Fan safer. Then suddenly something inside her kept wriggling. She collapsed against the glass, panting, this warm spiritual kai is so strange. Since Yi Fan touched me, this thing appeared in my body. My meridians and Danshan are being nourished by this power. Could this be Yi Fan's secret? Ling Long kept touching herself, eyes turning into hearts before she knew it true. Stuck at martial grandmaster so long. Finally I can break my talent limit. Might as well let that brat Yi Fan enjoy a bit of this. Cut to outside the Su Group building. People at the conference buzzed about. Su family actually had the nerve to hold a press conference. Lee family stole their new drug announcement. What can they do now? Hearing that, the other man thought of another possibility. Maybe there's another new drug. Father Lai, who had eavesdropped, snorted, hemph, research and development aren't that easy. They read just flailing before they die. Then he smiled congenially. Rest assured, Head Liu this time will scare them off so no one will dare help the Yi family. The person he was speaking with was Liu family head Liu Ran. Hearing this he chuckled. Well done, there'll be plenty of benefits for you later. Then cheerfully invited the guests into the studio. Suddenly all the guests turned their gazes to the other side. Look quickly, those people in the VIP seats. It's Xia Hao of Xia Group, Mr. Xia. Isn't that Cloud City Governor Sun Khan behind him? This left Father Lai Agapa. The identities of the elders behind them were not simple. What, besides Xia Hao, even the Cloud City Governor and hidden elders are here. Where does Su family get such face? Is it because of that damned Yi family? At that moment on the stage, Aixu, in a pure white dress, announced loudly, welcome and thank you for your support. I'm Su Aixu representing Su Group. Today our company intended to unveil a new drug developed over many years with significant manpower. The more Aixu spoke, the whiter Father Li's face became. But just yesterday Li Group announced a new drug whose formula is nearly identical. The guests murmur as Su is bold. She's directly accusing Li family of plagiarism. Li family has never entered beauty products. Something's off. No wonder Lai Yunyang suddenly died yesterday. Unable to bear the insult, Father Lai flew into a rage and stood up to confront her Mims. Su, what do you mean? Li family clearly announced our new drug first. Are you accusing us of plagiarism? He then gave a foolish smile but added that since Li family announced first, he'd like to see how Ms. Su presents hers. If the composition matches Li family's new drug, he'd sue for trade secret theft until they were ruined. Then he played a smear tactic, of course. If Su family agrees to sell, Li family can share our new drug with you, he said with a triumphant grin that made Yaxu frown. This Orient Group man was sure he had no evidence to confront them, but never one to back down as Yi Fan's wife. Yaxu smiled lightly, no need. Su Group's new product, based on ancient formulations, is called Snow Beauty Restoration Cream. It beautifies, fades dark spots, and rapidly heals wounds without leaving any trace, completely different from Li family's formula. The crowd, especially the wealthy matrons eager to try it, buzzed miraculous. It treats dark spots and scars. Too good to be true. Hearing this, Liu Ran angrily told Father Lai, didn't you say you obtained Su family's secret? How do they still have a new drug? He turned pale. Impossible, I spent hundreds of millions to get that. It can't be fake. Quickly regaining his arrogant pose, he said, this girl is just bluffing. Hemph, Su's, is your new drug really different from Li family's? More importantly, has this ancient formula been validated in such a short time? Father Li's supporters piled on, right, claiming miracles before proof. It's clearly a scam. Su Yaxu, urea fraud. Suddenly a familiar voice rang out, fraud. As he appeared, the Vips buzzed, great Xia medical saint Lei Shanju. The old master. He provided the ancient prescription. Then it must be genuine. He declared, I happened upon and reconstructed this prescription. From my tests, it can ensure beauty, fade dark spots, and restore scars. Visible effects in just a few minutes, and no side effects at all, leaving everyone eager for the new product. Only a few minutes to see results. Incredible. Someone asked if no one said the medical saint would vouch for it. Another replied, he never represents commercial companies. What are we waiting for? Buy it now. Su Hongfa Pharmaceuticals, I'll pre-order a batch, deposit 1 billion. Far Mountain Group also wants to partner with Su Group, deposit 500 million. Please give us a chance. Hello, I'm a representative of Orient Group, I'll offer 800 million, Ms. Su. Seeing people rallying to her side, Yaxu brightened, great. With this money Su Corporation can reach a new level. Suddenly Father Li pushed forward, pointing at her results in a few minutes. This miracle drug, Su, Do you dare let us witness it with our own eyes? He scoffed inwardly. I don't believe any miracle drug works in just minutes.